This podcast contains detailed plot spoilers, adult language, and mature themes. Listener discretion is advised.
All rise. The court of the DC Extended Universe is now in session. Judge Zachary E. Snyder presiding. Calling the case of Batman v Superman. Court is now in session. Welcome to a podcast of rare antiquities. Today on the show, it's none other than the world's greatest heroes, Batman and Superman, duking it out for playground supremacy. Who wins? Who loses? Stay tuned to find out next. I am your host, Jeff.
And I am your co-host, Harry.
All right. Welcome to the show, Harry. And we've got two very special guests coming back to the show. Nathan, welcome back to the show.
What's happening?
And Andrew, how's it going, buddy?
Not bad. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for being here, man. This is our sort of foray back into the mainstream here. We definitely have a lot to talk about. So we'll just kind of get rolling right into it. This is our custom on the show. We tend to reminisce on our memories, obviously, with brand new mainstream movie. We can't do that. So I want to talk a little bit about the lead up to Batman v Superman. Harry, we'll start with you. Let's go back to 2013, a couple months after the opening of Man of Steel. The announcement that the sequel to Man of Steel would be a team-up or versus movie with Batman versus Superman. Take us back to 2013. What are your memories about that?
I believe it was partial excitement, for sure. I mean, who doesn't want to see Batman and Superman in the same movie? We've been waiting for it for a long time. It's been done in the comics and done in animated movies, so hey, why not? But as we talked about in our podcast, I think it was episode 5 when we did our Superman franchise take, I didn't want it to happen this quickly, and that was my hesitation, because sure, we'll get into it. Some of the plot elements from Man of Steel is continued into here, which I personally believe still would be better represented in a direct sequel. And I kind of wish they did the Marvel route, where they introduced, everyone had their own solo flick, and then they went into something, and then they could have done Batman and Superman to kick off Justice League, and then Justice League. But I'll just leave it at that. That's my first take at it.
So Nathan, what about yourself? Let's go back to the announcement in 2013 and Ben Affleck being announced as the new Batman.
I initially remember being texted by you, holy shit, are you seeing this? And I mean, it was kind of an unbelievable announcement at the time. And I was super stoked. I mean, some of my favorite comics as a kid were when Batman and Superman teamed up. And then when Affleck was announced, I had a strong negative reaction initially. And I kind of warmed up to the idea afterwards. And we'll talk about it more, but I think it worked out. I think I was more irritated by the fact that they just went out and picked him, as opposed to saying, okay, let's bring in some people and go through a real casting process.
Okay. Andrew, what about yourself?
I was definitely nervous when the announcement was made, and similar to Harry, I was a bit surprised at the timing, because they seemed to be moving really quickly following Man of Steel. And Man of Steel wasn't a huge success, I think, from Warner Brothers' perspective. But Ben Affleck, when he was announced, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I held off a little bit just because I didn't want to jump the gun, because recent castings have actually been pretty good for both, I think, DC and DC's only had the one, and from Marvel. So I was hoping that they knew what they were doing. But I definitely was one of those oh God, right off the bat, sour taste in the mouth.
I'll give you guys my thoughts. I was very excited, very happy that they had decided to go this route. I thought that they would never do just a team up movie with two. I thought that they would, do some of the solo movies if they could, bring it together for Justice League. I thought it was a great idea to bring just Superman and Batman together on screen. I remember an interview with Henry Cavill after Man of Steel had come out. He had suggested in the interview, somebody was talking about a Justice League movie, and he's like, that's probably a bit much to just jump into, but maybe like a team-up movie, Batman, Superman. And I was like, that'd be an awesome idea, and they'll never do it. So when they announced that that's what they were doing, I was super excited. When Ben Affleck was announced as Batman, I was just kind of perplexed. I was like, that's kind of an odd choice just because of who he is. He's a very recognizable name. I was trying to give it the objective viewpoint that it deserves. I kind of warmed up to the idea. Once I started seeing the photos of him in the suit and then the trailers, then I was warming up to the idea. So, what about kind of leading up to the film? Nathan, why don't you give us your thoughts on as we got closer? I mean, the movie was announced to be released summer 2015. and then it was delayed almost a full year. We found out that Wonder Woman was also going to be a part of the film. When we're in that phase, what were your feelings at that point?
Well, I remember when the very first photo of Gal, I think it's Gadot. Is that how you pronounce your name, or is it?
I was going to bring that up. It's actually Gal Gadot.
Gal Gadot. Okay,
it's pronounced Routh.
It's called that.
When the first photo came out, because that was another casting that I was like, whoa, like this. The only thing I knew her from was from a couple of the Fast and Furious movies. And I honestly thought she was, a 5'2", 100-pound woman. I'm like, no, that's wrong for Wonder Woman. And then the first photo came out and it's like, oh, okay, I can get on board for this. And then I remember I saw a trailer from San Diego Comic-Con that was just Batman turning on the bat signal, and it pans up and it's got this cool ominous music, and it's Superman, his eyes are glowing red. I mean, that all appeared in the movie eventually, but I mean, it was kind of a neat trailer. I really liked Ben Affleck carried himself as Batman in that first trailer. There's a great shot of him just kind of ducking underneath something. The suit looks really cool. Yeah. And as time went on, I got, more and more excited and stoked. I was a little disappointed that they delayed it by a year, but well, I mean, what can you do? I mean, as just time went on, I got more and more excited. I think as reviews started to kind of trickle out and rumors started trickling out, I became a little bit more concerned, but I don't know. I was still very, very excited.
Well, Andrew, what about yourself? As we kind of lead up more to the movie, the trailers are getting released. Are you getting more excited or less excited at this point?
It just looked like it was going to be a visually stunning movie. The very first trailer that came out was also really good as well. And so I'm like, okay, this looks like they're actually going to be able to pull off a solid movie. And then the second trailer came out. And then that's where I just went, oh God, I think they completely gave away the entire movie. And I don't like what they gave away. Even though I was happy after seeing some of the footage of Wonder Woman, the casting seemed like it would be really good, but I really have a bone to pick with Warner Brothers marketing. I know someone who works at Warner Brothers, and I spoke with her right after the trailer came out. And honest to God, she just looked at me. She's like, I know. I don't know what they're doing with this. This is not good right now, because everyone was just floored at the trailer that came out. And it was the one that showed Doomsday. And I'm just after that, it was I don't know what they can do to redeem themselves. And so I was hoping, and they had elements in the trailer that were really cool, but there was just way too much that was given away that I knew would be bad. I tried to be as much of an optimist as possible up until I watched the movie, but we'll talk about it later.
Yeah, I think you're right. That trailer did show absolutely it was the whole goddamn movie.
Yeah.
Harry, what about yourself?
Yeah, I agree with Andrew. I mean, I agree with you guys. I'm not a big fan of the Dark Knight Returns story to begin with, but it was still interesting.
Oh, sorry, I think we lost Harry because he just said he didn't like the Dark Knight Returns.
No, I think it's overrated garbage, but that's just me.
Overrated
garbage.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll go back to my yes.
Just remember, this will exist for all time, Harry. Just remember that.
Usually it's the one person who stands out is usually the genius.
Harry, that's never been you the entire time that I've known you. You've always been status quo.
Keep going, Cosmo.
No, but I did like the first Comic-Con trailer. I said, okay, they're going in this direction. Makes sense. As more stuff came, I agree with Andrew. There are certain things that looked neat, certain things that made you go, oh boy, this may not be good. And then, I agree with Andrew in the sense that, I hate it when trailers give big plot points and surprises away. And they did that again, even in the third trailer. I don't want to give away too much of spoilers right now or what my thoughts are, what I liked and didn't like. So I'll just leave it at that.
Fair enough, boys. Well, I think it's time to get into film itself. Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. 18 months after Superman made Swiss cheese out of Metropolis with General Zod's face, opinions are split on the nobility of Big Blue's actions. Lois Lane, living up to her damseliest of all damsels in distress, is tracking down a story in the desert when she's captured by terrorists. Have no fear, though, because here's Jimmy Olsen, now a CIA operative, ready to free them both from the clutches of evil, and... Oops, nope, Jimmy just got shot in the face. It's okay, though, because Superman swoops in to rescue Lois, but not in time to rescue the other terrorists who are all gunned down by one of their own. Primary among Superman's detractors is billionaire vigilante Bruce Wayne. He prefers his crime fighting with fewer laser eye-beams and more rib-crunching spin kicks. And in the Snyderverse, he also has a weird branding fetish. Other opponents of Krypton's muscle-bound hero include Lex Luthor, a manic tech billionaire who dresses like a hipster Silicon Valley reject, and Senator June Finch, the only person in the proceedings so far with any sanity. She thinks things like truth and justice should also be accompanied by the law. Batman, the world's greatest detective, does some detecting and learns that weapon trafficker Anatoly Knazev has been in touch on the DL with Mr. Luthor. Meanwhile, Luthor is creepily trying to convince Senator Finch to help him import a strange green glowing rock retrieved from the Indian Ocean amidst the wreckage of the Kryptonian world builder. Seems this rock has adverse effects on Kryptonian tissue. He also wants access to Zod's body and the remains of the Kryptonian scout ship that's still double parked in front of a Starbucks in downtown Metropolis. Finch doesn't dig Lex's request to import the alien rock, however, so he's going to have to take matters into his own hands. Bruce is still trying to figure out the connection between Luthor and the arms dealer, and uses an invite to Lex's swanky party at LexCorp to infiltrate his databanks. It must be some kind of superhero alter ego party, though, as Bruce runs into none other than intrepid reporter Clark Kent, who is not a fan of Gotham's Caped Crusader, and antiques dealer Diana Prince, who isn't a fan of Bruce stealing Lex's data, not without her getting a look first anyway. Diana pockets Bruce's data drive and peels some wheelies in her sweet invisible jet. Totally not invisible sports car. She can't do anything with the drive, however, so she gives it back to Bruce, who plugs it into the Bat computer. Oh, the Bat computer is so slow. Do you see that progress bar? Time to catch some winks. He dreams of puppy dogs and rainbows and margaritas and bikinis. Oh, wait, no, he has a vision of the future in which the Earth lies in smoking ruin. And only desert action Batman, with sweet leather duster and goggles included, can save the world by stopping Superman. Bruce snaps out of the vision, but someone left the door to the Batcave open and let in this weird howling vortex through which we see none other than the Flash. He's from the future, and according to him, Bruce has always been right about him. It's about Lois. He's gone as fast as he arrived, and now finally the Bat computer is done decoding Luthor's data. Looks like Luthor is importing kryptonite, and his plan is to weaponize it. That gives him an idea. Meanwhile, Senator Finch is convening hearings on Superman's actions in Africa, and it's time for Krypton's last son to stand up for himself, face the music, and set the record straight about, Congress explodes, killing everyone inside, except Superman. Lex Luthor was behind the whole thing, and the world is definitely not behind Superman. In fact, one concerned citizen is definitely in the opposite corner. Batman. He's busted into LexCorp and stolen the kryptonite. He and Alfred construct an array of kryptonite weapons in order to take down the Man of Steel, including a dope mech warrior suit. To execute the final phase of his plan, Luthor kidnaps Supes' mom and holds her hostage. Either Superman brings Luthor the head of the Bat, or Martha Kent gets it. Superman doesn't want to fight. He can fly over to Gotham, buy Bruce a latte, and they can work this whole thing out. And so Batman shoots Supes with a kryptonite gas grenade, and they throw down. The gas grenade is just enough to even the odds between them, but, of course, Batman fights dirty, and all that's left is for Batman to plunge the kryptonite spear he forged right through Superman's heart. Supes knows he's finished, and his last request is for Bruce to find Martha and save her. Oh, wait, did he say Martha? Bats is like, that's my mom's name. And Supes is like, that's my mom's name. And Bats is like, what? And Supes is like, I know, right? And they patch things up, and actually, it's really kind of sweet. Lois arrives and tells him that the Kryptonian scout ship is spitting all this lightning, but Clark's mom is still Luthor's hostage. Batman sets to rescuing Martha while Superman heads to the ship to confront Luthor. Batman finds the abandoned warehouse, because of course it's an abandoned warehouse, where Luthor is holding Martha and redecorates the place with everyone's shattered bones. At the scout ship, Luthor unveils his fallback plan, a giant monstrous creature created from the remains of General Zod in his own blood. Sorry, Superman, it's your doomsday. It's Kryptonian, which means all those awesome kryptonite weapons Batman just made are their only chance. Supes is like, I'll shoot these kryptonite grenades at him, and Diana is like, I'll chop him up with my sword, and hey, wait a sec, who's the girl with the glowing lasso and armored bikini? Well, it looks like she's on the right side, at least. The three heroes combine their might and hold Doomsday just long enough for Superman to drive the spear right through its heart. But the monster takes the opportunity to murder punch Superman right through the heart with his bony protrusions where his hand used to be. I guess Zack Snyder must have promised to recast him after 300. Luthor is thrown in prison, where he gets a cute makeover in a comfy cell. Batman is there to warn him. He'll always be there no matter where Luthor goes. But Luthor turns around with a warning of his own. The bell has been rung, and he's out there, whoever he is. At Clark's funeral in Smallville, Bruce and Diana ponder those words. Time to seek out the others, the ones like Clark and Diana. Maybe they can start some kind of super squad or something. I wonder what they should call it. The end. All right, well, that's Batman v Superman, gentlemen. Dawn of Justice. Harry, just initial thoughts going on to the plot synopsis. What do you think?
It's okay. It's very comic booky, but the truth, justice, and American way is in the details. So I really can't say any more, right? Because, I mean, it sounds okay just from what you said. Couple curious things there that doesn't sound like it would work on paper, but it's all in the execution and it's all in the details. We need to know the context. We need to know the motivations. We need to know all that stuff. But, there are a few things in there that just sound really weird.
That synopsis, I mean, it sounds completely reasonable. I just wonder if maybe you should have written the movie. I love that you busted out Desert Action Batman, because I think I actually have two Batman figures that, well, one was, I think, kind of the inspiration for that costume, and then I bought one of the Pop Funko, I think it's called Nightmare Batman, and that's my favorite one. Yeah, it's like Harry said, it's very comic booky, which also, I mean, it's kind of a compliment, but it's also a detriment to the movie because there's so many things in this movie that unless you're a comic book fan, and we'll get into some of the details you didn't mention, a non-comic book fan would be sitting there, it's like, what the fuck is going on? Like especially after that, like that whole flashback, well, I guess that's called the nightmare sequence. That sequence is, I mean, it is crazy, right? I mean, is it just me? I like it, but if you don't know anything about the DC universe, what are you expected to make of that?
There's also logic issues there, but we'll get to it.
There's so much in that nightmare sequence to parse. I mean, that you could almost do a podcast just on that alone. The other thing about the synopsis, I mean, I even your synopsis has a Batman focus, which is another issue I take with the movie, is that did Superman even say 2 words until an hour into the film? It felt like a bat-heavy movie.
Andrew, what about you?
Your synopsis was great. I think it had more humor than the entire movie, actually. So I would gladly listen to that synopsis, given what was presented. I
think a knock-knock joke has more humor than that entire movie, but please continue.
I'm still reeling from the gut punch from last week. So it's got elements that are good, but I think anyone who is vaguely familiar with some of the stories that the movie is based upon still doesn't make much sense. And that's where it sounds like, and what it is when you watch the movie, it just sounds like way too much happening in one movie that could have really and should have been split up into multiple movies leading up into this big celebration. But we'll move on to something else before I start. I'm just going to drink more. Never mind.
Okay, yeah, have a sip. While you do that, I'll hit you guys with some trivia here, just some numbers here. So no real word on the budget of this film. I read estimates placing it anywhere from $250 million up to $421 million, not knowing what includes marketing cost.
I think that higher number.
I think it's higher.
Includes the marketing.
No, but
I think that the higher number
than that.
Yeah, well, I mean, nothing's officially in. I think the close to $420 million includes marketing costs. So far, after a week of release, before its second weekend, it's at the time of this recording, it's taken in a little over $500 million worldwide. So making inroads at the box office. Most pundits are saying that it's going to need to make $1 billion for it to be considered a success. We'll see what the studio thinks, and we can talk a little bit about that after. A couple little neat notes. The arms dealer there, played by Callan Mulvey, character name Anatoly Kanayev, if that's how you pronounce it. That character in the Batman comics is known as the KG Beast, which I know Nathan remembers.
I remember KG Beast. I just didn't know that his real name.
Yeah, so that's this guy here. Kind of a cool villain. Didn't have a whole lot of time.
Isn't he supposed to be huge?
Yeah, I guess if you're going to call him the Beast, then I guess you'd have to say he was huge. He was formidable.
He was just tall. I wouldn't call him formidable.
No, he wasn't like Bane giant, but I mean, he was like a large, yes. I mean, but I mean, all those like physical supervillains were all drawn kind of that same way.
That's true.
The original Batman versus Superman almost got made in the early 2000s. The script written by Akiva Goldsman, whom I'm sure we're all fans of, and was going to be directed by Wolfgang Peterson. A couple of early casting choices for Superman.
The Cage.
Jude Law, Josh Hartnett. What's that?
I was saying, I'm hoping The Cage.
Oh, The Cage. No, that was
Nick Cage, George Clooney,
Make it
Greatest
happen.
Batman versus Superman.
Man, make it happen.
I'm sure we have brought that up on the show before. I mean, I know for sure we'd all love to go to the alternate universe where that movie exists. But this was going to star Jude Law or perhaps Josh Hartnett as the Man of Steel. Early
Terrible
casting
casting.
choices. Yeah. Well, Jude Law is a pretty good actor. I don't know if he's Superman.
I don't know about Superman. Maybe Jimmy Olsen.
Yeah,
Maybe Jimmy Olsen. Early considerations for Batman, Colin Farrell, who honestly I could see in the role. Also, Christian Bale was also considered for the role at that point, and a couple things I read is that kept him on the radar for for Batman Begins eventually. So kind of neat. It was greenlit. Would have come out in the summer of 2004, but it just fell apart. Budgetary considerations. It was going to be too expensive. Wolfgang Peterson went on to direct Troy, and Akiva Goldsman sort of wrote in a little Easter egg into the film he scripted, I Am Legend, with Will Smith, where you can see a poster for the movie in the background in Times Square, which has a Batman logo with the Superman logo in it, which is close to what we actually see with the real movie. So. Yeah, that's about it. So let's get in. So any initial thoughts before we want to hit the film here?
Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure this is on everybody's mind.
Never.
I'm sure this is on everybody's mind. But did we get a nip slip from Amy Adams?
Oh my God.
I don't think so. And I was really looking, man.
We were looking real close, dude. Trust us.
Yeah.
That's the most important thing that was on top of my head.
I've already stated my love for her on your podcast when we talked about all the Superman movies before, but it was weird because it was getting pretty close.
I'm just glad that, like, here in the, we're well into the 21st century, and I'm glad that we can have these frank discussions.
We can class it up a little with these hard questions.
Yeah, exactly. We're not shying away here, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to get into the film here. I was unable to find a version of the script or plots or scene by scene, blow by blow, as we normally do. So we'll do our best. And anybody wants to cut in with something that I've forgotten, please do. So Batman v Superman. So the film opens with Zack Snyder's take on the death of Thomas and Martha Wayne, Bruce Wayne's parents.
Never seen that before.
Zack Snyder goes back to the original canon here, where they're walking out of a theater having just watched the Mask of Zorro. This is an important piece of comic book lore. Let's talk about it a little bit. Let's ask the questions. How was this handled? Did it work for you? Did it not work for you? Let's start with Andrew. What do you think?
As much as I just joked that we've seen it before, I thought the opening was really good when it came to just showing the backstory. They didn't spend too much time dwelling on it. I did appreciate the fact that they showed Negan from The Walking Dead a week and a half before he's actually going to debut this upcoming weekend, and along with Maggie from The Walking Dead. It was a nice little throw out to The Walking Dead fans. I actually thought it was very well done. I wasn't too disappointed when I first saw it. I was like, okay, we've seen this, but then walking away, I'm like, okay, that wasn't too bad.
Yeah, for sure. Two characters there. Jeffrey Dean Morgan's actually been in shit before The Walking Dead.
Really? No,
yeah, I don't
kidding.
know I don't know if you knew that, Andrew. But a Zack Snyder favorite for sure. Harry, what did you think of this new take?
I liked it. Interesting that actually, I forget the father. Forget his name now, the first name, but he actually makes the first move, which is different than how it was in the Nolan movies. Because he actually tries to go for him, like he tightens his fist and looks like he's going for the gun or going for a punch. That's what starts this. So it's interesting. Is it his fault now again? Yeah. So whether it's I guess it's destiny. It's funny whether through action or inaction, it's Batman's destiny regardless, right? He's gonna die. So I found that kind of interesting. But I like that it's all done in the credits, because that was a worry. I think we briefly touched on this in our previous podcast, saying that, we're hoping it's not going to be bogged down with another origin storyline. And here they just kind of knocked it out of the park very quickly, very efficiently. I don't know if you want to move into Funeral, where he enters into the Batcave. I was the first, what the fuck was happening when the bats were lifting him out of the cave? I'm saying, no, this is bullshit. But because it turned out to be a dream sequence, I liked it, and I love the visual from underneath as he's getting out of the well and he's making the shape of the bat. So that was pretty cool. So overall, I like this whole opening sequence here because it was done very quickly and had some interesting ideas.
Yeah, I had the exact same feeling with the bats lifting him up out of the well. I was like, oh my God, we're in fucking trouble. But because it was a dream, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm all right with that. That's fine. He's kind of, he's got the arm spread as the bat, also perhaps a callback to the Christian imagery that we had talked about in Man of Steel, which I didn't love then, but perhaps is a different, because it's Bruce's dream, so he sees him, maybe he's seeing himself as the savior now, which I thought was interesting. Nathan, what did you think about the opening here?
I'm glad they kept it brief. Like Harry pointed out, the fact that Thomas Wayne is making the first move. I don't know how I feel about that, actually. Not that I'm, victim blaming here or anything, but I don't know. It seems very macho, right? Which much of this movie is, right? I mean, like, there's many parts of this movie.
He's got that macho mustache there. He's got to make the first move.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm surprised the mustache didn't try and punch out the mugger. But
should have been a handlebar.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, what year would that have been? Well, actually, that's something I wanted to bring up. The other movie that was there was Excalibur.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any theories on why that very real and very specific movie was also playing at the same movie theater? I thought it was just an odd reference and a very specific reference, but I can't make heads or tails as to why it's there.
Should have been Porky's.
Dude, that's great. But yeah, I thought him making the first move was very macho. And I guess that's not very surprising coming from, the ultimate dude bro, Zack Snyder. And of course, the end of the sequence, my first thought when I saw him rising up with the bats, I'm like, this better be a fucking dream sequence. Otherwise, I'm going to lose my mind. Like, we're already at minute 3 and I'm about to get angry. I kind of softened on it a little bit and I thought, oh, okay, all right, that's fine. I mean, this movie is rotten with dream sequences, which we'll talk about.
Maybe some more trivia. In The Dark Knight Returns, when we see the depiction of the murder scene, and Harry, you mentioned like how his father makes that fist, that's actually captured in a couple frames of the comic where he clenches a fist and is about to make a move, and then the trigger is pulled and he goes down. And also, where we'll call him Joe Chill, has his gun tangled up with Martha's string of pearls, and pulling the triggers what snaps the string of pearls there. So that's lifted directly from The Dark Knight Returns there. So
I found it interesting that this now Joe Chill is a brown guy.
Was he brown?
I think so.
Oh boy.
Hey man, I'm brown.
This is gonna,
it's okay.
Now I'm gonna feel weird bringing up my feelings of some of the racism that's in this movie. Now
well, it's adding on to the 9/11 allegory. Let's admit it, guys.
Yay. Well, that's the show today, ladies and gentlemen. All right, so as we move past that, we go to the site of the Battle of Metropolis, where Superman and Zod are fighting. Only we get it from Bruce Wayne's point of view now. I just wanted to bring it up now. I really liked sort of the caption on the screen there where it said whatever to the effect of, the world's, is introduced to the Superman. And Batman's always is often referred to as the Batman, but I never heard of Superman referred to as the Superman. That played up what Zack Snyder's been trying to do here, love it or hate it, making him the alien. So we see the Battle of Metropolis from Bruce's perspective. He lands there, runs right into the fray, trying to help out the victims of this. You can see the expression on his face. He's definitely not happy with this alien trashing the city. Again, I think it's an important point. We're not going to stop at every scene, but I think this is important because we saw it earlier and we're seeing it from a different point of view. Andrew, what did you think of the Battle of Metropolis from Batman's point of view here?
I did like it as an introduction, but it's the beginning of, hey, I've already seen this in the trailer. I think it would have been a really cool intro to give that human perspective of the Battle of Metropolis. And you can see the elements of why Bruce Wayne is pretty suspicious of Superman's intentions. I thought it was pretty well done. Yeah, I liked it to start off the movie. But at the same time, you're watching it going, I already knew what was going to happen based upon what the trailer showed me.
Yeah, fair enough. This is definitely spoiled in the trailers. Harry, what do you think?
There's a couple of really good sequences in this movie, and this was one of them. One of my hesitations was dealing with this plot point in this sequel, but I did like this sequence regardless. It gave Batman a grudge or a worry, so there's some part of a motivation there onto what's going to transpire later in the movie, but in terms of his hatred or his worry about having Superman on this planet, and shows the divide, as you talked about in your synopsis, about, did he save us or should he be here? He's, he causes destruction regardless. So is it worth having a Superman around? So I liked seeing this kind of perspective and the damage that was done, even though we saw it in Man of Steel and in the trailers. But I just wanted to point out, like, is Bruce Wayne kind of a dick boss because his people were kind of waiting for his call, like permission to leave the building, no matter what the fuck was happening around them. It's like, oh no, we're staying here until the boss tells us we're allowed to leave. I don't know.
I think it's a given that he's a dick boss, isn't it? I mean,
that's actually one of the things I like about his.
That's just a joke.
I kind of like his performance as kind of a bit of a sleazeball, so it almost makes sense that he's kind of a hard ass boss. He's like, all right, you guys work to the absolute last minute. You got to get those papers filed, get those papers in, and then you can go.
I don't want to see anybody leaving the office, even if there's aliens fucking battling in the street. Oh, wait, even if there's aliens battling in the street.
Is the building actually coming down around you, or is it just kind of shaking a little?
That's the only reason he showed up, is because he kept hearing these excuses like, fine, I'll check to see if there's a flying alien.
He was running a lot of tight margins on whatever the business was, right? He's got to keep them there as long as possible.
Yeah. He's got to pay for those fancy shoes, boys. It's the stuff's not free. Yeah. And that helicopter, come on. As we kind of move on, we also get the knowledge that the U.S. government is not too pleased with the actions of Superman. So, we get the sequence in the desert where...
So before we jump to the desert, Jeff, so just another sequence here. This is where we find the diver in the Indian Ocean finding the kryptonite. So I wanted to talk about this very briefly here.
Okay.
So obviously, to me, it was the machine from Man of Steel, the world builder. The question I have here is, why would they have kryptonite on the world builder? Two things that come up in my head. One, would it not affect them to have kryptonite on that world builder if there were Kryptonians on it, which I think there were? And two, didn't they say in Man of Steel they found this world builder on another planet after Krypton exploded? So, I mean, now we just have to assume that they found kryptonite floating in space and they retrieved it, and then it came here. It shouldn't be there based on the events we saw in Man of Steel. Correct me if I'm wrong.
You are correct that they found the world builder on another planet. The presence of the kryptonite, it's not explained. It's there because it's there.
So I don't know if this was, I kind of doubt that the writers of this film actually thought about it, but it actually did remind me of some Superman stories where the kryptonite itself is actually not lethal to a Kryptonian unless they're on Earth. And I know that's a pretty weak explanation, but I seem to recall...
in the presence of the Earth sun.
Yeah, exactly. So I think when you've soaked up the yellow rays of Earth's sun, then you're susceptible to kryptonite. But under any other circumstance, so I guess when you're under a red sun, it wouldn't affect you. So I would assume then that the kryptonite did come from Krypton and it's radioactive and it might have been used as some kind of power source or for something else, and then it only would become lethal to a Kryptonian while that Kryptonian's on Earth. I mean, that's a pretty weak explanation, and I seriously doubt. I think I put more thought into it than the writers of the film, but that's kind of how I would explain it.
Yeah, maybe it's best to just kind of move on from that. I mean, that definitely
just move on. It's not well explained.
The U.S. government, so they're spearheaded by Senator Finch. They're not too happy with Superman's actions. We get the scene in the sequence in the desert. So Lois is chasing some story for some reason, and she meets up with these terrorists, I guess, gets captured. And this poor bastard with a camera, he's never named, turns out to be a CIA plant, and boom, he gets capped. Superman rolls in to save Lois. It's an inside job, and all these terrorists get shot by one dude. For some reason, Superman's getting blamed for the deaths of all these guys, villagers. People are testifying before Congress that Superman has murdered all these people. So we start to get the feeling that opinions are divided on Superman. Is he a hero? Is he a villain? How did this play out for you guys here? I'm Andrew, what about yourself here? We get the scene in Africa with Lois Lane. Can she keep herself out of trouble for a change? What do you think?
She seems to be at the wrong place at the wrong time for the duration of all of these movies. And it felt just really rushed and forced. Like, that's where, they're having discussions about whether or not Superman can be trusted. But this is taking place at this point in the movie 18 months after the events of Man of Steel. I don't get why it would take 18 months for all these discussions to happen, or like what's been happening in the 18 months that kind of justifies them having these opinions about Superman after he pretty much saved the world, minus, destroying most of Metropolis. So the whole Jimmy reference too, like I didn't notice that. It didn't dawn on me until like a couple minutes after it happened. I'm like, wait a minute, did they just kill Jimmy? And then Superman just plowing that terrorist. And I'm pretty sure after you go through a number of layers of cement wall, you'd be dead, which is another little question mark when it comes to Superman. So it was the beginning of that didn't make sense. And that was a very common thing that I was saying to myself throughout the duration, and people next to me throughout the duration of this movie.
They were just plaster walls.
Okay.
Yeah,
Good.
no, like he's totally fine. That guy's totally
Yeah, but
fine.
also remember that it was an indestructible battering ram that pushed him through those plaster walls. Yeah, like, I mean, unless it's particle board, I don't know how well you're going to fare coming out the other side.
The place was made by IKEA. What can I say? I can see how he could survive.
His brain is mush. Just at the speed that Superman propelled himself into that guy.
Yeah, they also don't show the sequence where he actually throws him into space. Oh,
You know what I want to do?
Jimmy.
You want to know what I want to do right now? I just want to fucking high five Zack Snyder right now.
Well, okay. You don't like Jimmy Olsen,
Jimmy.
that's fine, but have respect for the character. You want to kill Jimmy, that's fine, but do it
Well, they
in
had
a
respect.
respectful. I don't know, man. You don't even name him. You don't even name him.
Like, what's the point?
Yeah, so what's the point? Why make it Jimmy? He's just throwing it in there for the sake of throwing it in there. So he's talking about it. He's gleefully talking about it after the fact in interviews and stuff like that all over the internet. But doesn't name him here. And, why not just have Jimmy Olsen out there? Don't even address him at all. You want to leave him out? Why kill him?
Because he had it coming.
Okay, if you don't like Jimmy Olsen, that's fine. But there are fans of Jimmy Olsen out there. I'm just saying, you're now playing with characters built into the universe that people will, take issue with. I'm not a big Jimmy Olsen fan either.
I kind of agree with Harry. It shows a Zack Snyder's disdain.
Yeah,
for nerds, like you know what, nerds suck it.
It has nothing to do with nerds. It has to do with the material. These characters are part of this universe.
Well, I mean
why not just leave them?
The Batman of Zur-En-Arrh is part of the universe here too, but like they don't throw that guy in here. I mean, there's lots of superfluous characters in the comic books. It just doesn't make them okay. I mean, Jimmy Olsen's been fucking useless for decades.
So that's fine. So
let's face it.
So are you. What does that make? What does that mean?
That made so much sense.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
Did we lose Harry again?
Yeah.
All I'm saying is respect the material. That's all.
I think part of it'd be one thing if they actually did do that. I think what really twists the knife a little bit is Zack Snyder's offhanded, like, oh yeah, we killed Jimmy. It was a fun thing to do. And just his, like I said, his disdain for the material. I mean, it'd be one thing if to kill Jimmy Olsen, sure, it's fine. But to kind of do it in this sort of fashion, that speaks volumes about the man that they've handed the DC cinematic universe over to.
And I just want to bring up before you move on, I know you're going to quickly move on here, Jeff, is Superman, you just said it, Superman killed a terrorist. Fine, but he just lands, glares at him, growls at him, and then does it. There's no chance, there's no effort attempted in talking to this guy, effort into kind of saying, back down, there's no escape or anything like that. It's nope. As soon as Lois gives him the okay, you're toast. That's it. So again, that's something when we say, what's the evolution of the character from Man of Steel to this point, 18 months later, what has he learned? I don't know. That's something to talk about.
Well, yeah, I guess I'm not of the opinion that he killed the terrorist. I mean,
are you kidding
the laws
me?
of physics?
He
the laws of physics aside. No, I don't think he killed that guy. The only reason why I think he didn't
You are the only person on this planet who probably thinks he did not die from that. That guy's dead.
I can sort of see Jeff's perspective on this, that like maybe that guy did not necessarily die. Harry, I agree with you, right? I mean, for all intents and purposes, he probably did kill that dude. But the other thing that's kind of confusing about it too is, he has super speed. The filmmakers don't understand what that means. It means you can kind of take out a guy very quickly before you can blink an eye,
and he's faster
without
than a speeding
having
bullet.
to destroy him. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah, he could definitely do that, yeah. But I don't think the movie suggests... I mean, the laws of physics suggest that guy's dead, but I don't think the movie suggests that guy's dead.
I kind of agree with you, Jeff. But I think the one thing that we're kind of missing from this whole sequence is sort of the weird racism over this whole couple of sequences. because at that Senate hearing, to have that one woman talking to the senator, do these people think that Superman shot those people? Because I think it's weirdly racist. It's almost saying, oh, these, backwater black people don't know what Superman's powers are. Because who would think that Superman shot terrorists? He would, he would have thrown them into space or punched their heads off or incinerated them. This is the thing that's very confusing. Why did they think that Superman had anything to do with those deaths?
And they don't even bring the question up. So I mean,
no, they don't. They don't even really.
Yeah,
they don't even
obviously it's a setup.
Say that he killed.
Yeah, it's obviously a setup, and anyone with a half a brain would think actually, at least 1% chance, as Batman said, it might be a setup. So we have to approach it as an absolute certainty. So let's investigate this. So, nobody brought that question up. And then even Batman can't be seen. He's being set up later. We'll get into that. But anyways, yeah. Let's move on.
But this is where I thought, I honestly felt like that it was a little bit racist because, it's these people in an undisclosed desert region that, how could they possibly know what goes on in the world? I mean, if you live on the same planet as Superman, you know what his powers are, and you can probably come to the conclusion that he doesn't shoot people. Regardless if he actually does kill people, he doesn't shoot them at the very least.
I figured he just flew that guy to the hospital really quickly.
Yeah, but that one guy, but they were talking about the other.
They were talking about all the deaths. Yeah.
And they never actually, I don't think that was the other weird thing about that Senate hearing. It's like, we hold him responsible. Not he murdered people and he has to be held accountable for that. He's like, we hold him responsible as though, he, toppled a house or something like that. I mean, it's just, and that's the other thing. Is this sets off the whole kind of movie. And there's a million different ways you could have set that up. I mean, I think Demolition Man had a better setup. It was actually the same thing where they tricked Stallone or made it look like he killed a bunch of people. And that was a more realistic way of depicting it because this is obviously a Luthor setup. So why it's just so lazy, I thought.
No, I agree.
Yeah, fair enough. So let's move past. So we get to the introduction of the Batman. We get a feel for Batman, what his style is in this universe. Our first glimpse at the Batcave. Nathan, what did you think here?
Well, I thought it was a kind of a cool sequence. Sort of the way it ends with, or like the one in the house with the cop, trying to shoot him. I mean, that was kind of a weird CGI Batman, which I thought was odd. Yeah. I kind of liked how the women didn't want to be lit out of the cage because, it's still in the building. Great little moment there. But the branding thing, which we got to talk about that. I mean,
let's talk about the branding thing. Yeah, that's
Well, not only is it's weird, but it's also confusing as to why when you're in prison, it's a death sentence. I mean, you'd think it'd be more of a badge of honor. I'm so badass that Batman had to take me down.
That's what I think.
And I'm still standing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I
understand actually helping these criminals.
That's kind of the weird thing is that I could sort of see that, if Batman exclusively took down human traffickers and rapists and child molesters, then they're going to get what's coming to them in prison. They don't really explain. There's a bit of connective tissue here that's missing as to why this is a bad thing to have on you. I'm not necessarily opposed to him actually doing it, and they never come back to it. It just kind of happens, it was in the trailer and stuff like that. And this is also one of the things that makes Superman say, oh, hey, Batman's a bad dude. But aside from the branding, I thought the initial reveal of, we see this new Batman in action. We see the new Batcave. I thought it was a, good introduction.
Yeah, I like the setup, the girls being all scared to be let out and stuff like that. I just felt that his intro, when you get such a quick glimpse of him, was just, I like the way he moved, even though it was very CGI, obviously. But I mean, that's kind of how Batman's supposed to move. He has the ability to do that and the gadgets to do that. So I like that. It's just, I wish, again, an opportunity to introduce a character a little bit more epically. In a more of an epic scale. Here, it's just, he's just there, and then he leaves. So kind of a little...
I think Zack Snyder is completely incapable of introducing any character epically, because that was one of the problems with Man of Steel as well. He just kind of, I'm just going to take a stroll out in the snow.
Yeah, but I mean, again, just, it didn't feel like, I like the setup. It just, from there, it didn't have the payoff, in my opinion, for his first scene, even though he has some good sequences later as Batman. As for the cave, I kind of noted down here, it's definitely different, and I get that you need to do something different without copying previous iterations, but I felt that the cave was a bit bright and luxurious. It seemed a little odd for Batman, who'd probably want to be a little bit more in the dark and scowling and, contemplating his demons and just reliving his nightmares over again. I thought it was very bright. I did like, you get to see Alfred the first time, and I thought Jeremy Irons was awesome. I like their interactions there. And then, again, going back to the branding, where Alfred mentions it's new rules. He says this is what starts turning people cruel, because he says, now the presence of aliens and Superman is making him feel a little inadequate and feeling of powerlessness, and it turns men cruel. So funny, he's letting Superman change who he is. Probably a natural thing, but is now Batman so easily changed by just the presence of somebody? And I guess you can argue, because he went through what he did in Metropolis with all of his building and seeing all that destruction, that definitely would affect somebody. But would it affect Batman? Interesting question. That's all I just put down. I like these scenes.
Yeah, that's an interesting question you bring up there. I mean, and yeah, the introduction of Jeremy Irons as Alfred, I love that line too. It turns good men cruel. And that's such an overarching theme of the film there. I think that's really important. Would he be affected, so greatly by that? I mean, I think definitely he would be. I mean, he's already turned cruel. I think that's sort of the impression that I got. I mean, he's a scary dude. He's messed up shit. So you get a messed up guy seeing some really messed up shit. He's just gonna go further into that darkness there. Andrew, what did you think here of the introduction of the new Batman, the Cave, and Alfred?
Well, the branding I wanted to touch upon really quick, because I think the branding, if you've played like the Arkham games, it may be hinting at the fact that like Batman always gets people to talk. And so like if you've been caught by Batman, he's broken something that caused you to spill something that people don't want out. So if you get caught in jail with that Batman branding, perhaps it's an indication that you're a squealer and you basically told all the secrets. It's just one hypothesis.
Oh, I like that explanation.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting.
It's not something that I was thinking about at that particular point in time. And like,
I think all four of us have thought more about this movie than the writers. Again, just going to put that out.
Well, it's interesting because I really like the sequence. Like, I really like how it was mysterious with Batman. I like the Batcave. I love Jeremy Irons as Alfred. He was much better than I thought he would be. But then looking back on it now, hasn't Batman been around for a couple decades?
20 years in Gotham. How many good guys are left?
Yeah, so for me, it's like this would have been a perfect introduction for Batman when he first appears. But it's like everyone's freaked out about Batman. But if this mysterious character has been going around for 20 years capturing Gotham's greatest villains, and quite obviously Commissioner Gordon would have played a part in this, hopefully, unless Zack Snyder had his way. Like, I don't know why they'd be so fearful of the Batman 20 years later.
I'll tell you why, because he's really scary.
Oh, he is. And like, perhaps...
Are you telling me if that dude showed up and he's hanging in a corner of your wall there and you had done some bad shit, you're scared, you're peeing your pants? Andrew, tell me you're not.
Well, I'd be flattered that someone let themselves into my apartment, because that would be like one of the first visitors I've had in a long time. And we'd be like, how's it going? But no, it seemed like there was a lot of fear. And don't get me wrong, he's a scary guy, but he's got 20 years of material behind him. Like, he's someone that you would think had earned the trust of the city. Yet here it is, like, they're presenting him like he'd never appeared in front of anyone before.
I think there's an element of the Batman that people think, well, he's unstable.
True.
Right. And I think that's always sort of been an element of the character. I mean, there's a certain suspension of disbelief. I get where you're coming from. I see where you're coming from, that maybe in Gotham they should trust him more. But I think there's an element that it says like he's a little unstable and potentially dangerous.
And I see your point, like, too. I compare it also to Dark Knight Rises, where he was gone for such a long time. He came back and the cops that were chasing after him just had no idea what Batman... Granted, he had a story to it, but there just wasn't any explanation, like whether or not Batman has been operating for 20 years, whether or not Superman brought him out of the shadows, and now all of a sudden Bruce Wayne's got a complex and he's got to start being a little bit more aggressive to get more of the limelight. I loved the sequence, but it was another one of those, like, I don't know how this makes sense.
Yeah, it's kind of a little inconsistent. Like, I kind of wish they played Batman a bit more still of a myth, even though, like, the police know about him. Criminals kind of think he's out there, but they're not sure. But, everybody seems to know who he is, right? Even Perry doesn't give a shit. Fuck Batman. Let's focus on football, So
Yeah, I agree. I wish they had played up the myth a little bit more.
You know what? I thought it was kind of cool. I mean, when we get into we just kind of go to the case there where with the human trafficking and the women are all scared. Like they're like, nope, we're not. Just close the cage. We're cool. Like we're not leaving here. They're scared. I was good with it. I know that their intention was to play up the fact that Batman's still sort of he's operating in the shadows and isn't he isn't entirely a known quantity. And in the real world, that's hard to buy. But I think they're trying to balance that with, if you read the comic books, I mean, he's operating for decades really, but he's still able to command that fear, that mysticism. He's this, the people aren't sure if he's a supernatural being or what. So I thought it kind of worked there. I like the look of the Batcave. I think, Harry, you're right there. It's pretty clean and, for lack of a better word, sort of swanky. I mean, it's not dirty and run down. I think you're absolutely right there. But I mean, that being said, I don't know. I guess the only thing to really help spruce it up would be a giant coin and a statue of a T-Rex. Yeah.
I was really hoping they would have that. To be perfectly honest, yeah.
Or a nod to that would have actually been pretty cool. But
one thing we didn't really talk about was the Robin costume.
Okay, well, let's talk about the Robin costume then. Nathan, you brought it up. You get first crack.
Well, I just wanted to say that I like the fact that we don't dwell on it. We just kind of have that, and I know we don't see it till a little bit later, but the Wayne Manor and the way it's all burned out. I mean, these are nice, just little tidbits of the backstory of Batman, who's been in this world for a long time. And we see it, show, don't tell. A great thing in movies, no exposition on it. I think it's a great little scene that gives you a little bit of backstory of, the pain of Bruce Wayne's life.
Yeah, I totally agree. I loved the addition of that Robin costume. I thought that was fucking fantastic how they portrayed that with the graffiti on it. I thought that was great.
Although the fact that it's the shorts, like it's like classic Robin shorts, which is
that's true.
An odd choice.
Yeah, I guess that's true. He hasn't worn those shorts in many decades.
Maybe he wore leggings under that and they just couldn't figure out how to put it up. I don't know.
Could be. Hard to say. But overall, the look of the Batcave I thought it was sensible though. Like it wasn't overly swanky. It was it felt okay to me. I think Harry has a good point there. Jeremy Irons as Alfred, one of the highlights. He's so good. I mean, you don't have to give Jeremy Irons anything. You just show his face for a few seconds. Like, oh man, Jeremy Irons is so great in that movie.
Did anybody else think that maybe Jeremy Irons' Alfred was not even really there? He was just a figment of Bruce's imagination? Because he doesn't interact with anybody else.
That's true, he doesn't. Without an actual mansion, who is Alfred going to interact with?
I guess.
No, I mean, who is he going to interact with?
Well, I mean, Bruce Wayne did have that girl over because there was sort of a weird moment where
for all the
Bruce Wayne gives him coffee.
All the movement we saw out of that girl in Bruce Wayne's bed, she could have been a doll for all we know.
Yeah, well, she could have been dead, actually.
She was branded.
Yeah,
she was branded for sure.
Yeah, and then he dumped the body right in the lake there. That's the Batman in a website I read all the time. They called this now the DC Cinematic Murderverse. So everyone just gets murdered.
Well, how about we get into Luthor?
Yeah, let's talk about Lex Luthor. Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor. Harry, I'm going to give you the honor of getting out your science kit and dissecting this.
Obviously he was, like with the trailer shown, a lot of fans were a bit worried. You have to do a new take. And I'll just say this about what Jesse Eisenberg did, is he brought it all. Like, he didn't stop. He went in one direction and he said, I'm going for it. So props to him for going for it. It just didn't work, in my opinion. In his first introductory scene here, when he meets the senator, I thought like his early scenes were not too bad, and I was hoping it would continue in that direction. But I thought it just, as the movie went on, it got a bit worse and a bit worse with his, tics and nuances and his insecurities and all that stuff. As you talked about, like the Silicon Valley dropout hipster doofus kind of character, as we thought he would go. I didn't really like where it ended up. The funny thing is, I'll give you a little tidbit here, or trivia. I think his first words in the movie was, ahoy hoy. He channeled Mr. Burns. So I did like that. I was wishing for more Burns.
I was just really, really hoping that, like, we kind of knew what we were getting with Jesse Eisenberg. I was hoping that the way that he was portraying this version of Lex would be a cover Like it would just be like a way to make his eccentric behavior hide the fact that deep down inside, like he's an evil guy, which we know he is, but his personality didn't change from how he was portraying himself to everyone versus like how he was when he was being all diabolical. And it really bugged me. Like it wasn't Lex. And I think it's
not as we've ever seen him before anyway. Not really.
Correct. And I appreciate someone trying to take a different spin on it, but we're also putting, like, this is one of the most iconic villains of comic book history. And you don't go completely off the board in order to make it unique. And it wasn't, I think, what the movie needed.
One thing I do agree with Harry for sure is that, I mean, he went for it. There were scenes I thought worked and other ones did not. I thought the initial meet and greet with Lex, fine. But then later on at his gala or whatever the hell it was, I mean, it just became bizarre. I thought it was interesting, though, that they made him, millennial Silicon Valley type, because they kind of did a similar transformation on Lex Luthor in the 80s, where businessmen were now evil. And now, sort of there's a lot of kind of pushback against tech giants and their gentrification of California and such. And so now this is Lex Luthor. He's just a tech billionaire, which I think that idea kind of works, but the performance here is completely uncontrolled, but not like the character is uncontrolled. I just mean like there's no direction on the character at all.
Yeah, I like Jesse Eisenberg, and conceptually, this idea of Lex Luthor as the younger sort of Silicon Valley type tech genius concept works for me. This Lex Luthor didn't hit for me. I thought it was terrible. He really pulled me out of the movie. So let's just move on from this fucking guy. And how about Holly Hunter as Senator Finch? I mean, we're getting into the U.S. Senate stuff. She's calling out Superman at this point. Truth, justice, and the American way, which she stands for as well. And I think that she isn't sure that he stands for the same thing. How about this character? She's playing off of Lex more than anybody else here. Andrew, what did you think of Holly Hunter here?
I think I turned and whispered to my friend, like, that's Elastigirl.
So it was.
I like the initial introduction of the character, like showing the skepticism of the public and the government and whether or not like Superman is someone that they can trust. And so I appreciate the build-up, and someone like Holly Hunter, she's a great actress. So the beginning introduction of the character, I was certainly hooked, and I wanted to see more of how it was going to evolve. But we didn't get to see much of her, so it was a little bit of a letdown. I think she could have been leveraged a lot better than she was, but it showed, I think, a pretty good insight into how the government was really questioning the actions of Superman. And for her to also go toe-to-toe with Lex Luthor and kind of say, it's like, we're not going to let you export the kryptonite. Like, she was a character that you could see being pretty formidable, but then ultimately would just kind of cast aside in a Zack Snyder way.
I liked how they took the concept where, she's definitely not pro-Superman, but, when Lex is trying to convince her to import the kryptonite, to weaponize it so, they can protect themselves and all of that, she's not for that either. So she really wants to get to the truth of the matter, and she isn't, partisan on either side here. And I thought that was interesting to throw in. And you're right, she's kind of thrown away. Well, we'll get to that.
Let me say one thing, Jeff. She is the only true hero in this superhero movie.
Well, in what way? Elaborate.
Well, in my opinion, she is the one who's not only fighting for truth, fighting for justice, because she wants Superman to come and answer for his not crime, but at least answer to the victim. She wants him to work. She's saying in other interviews, as you get later on in the movie, she's saying, like, people are interviewing her on the TV, and she's saying, they're saying, well, do you think Superman should be here? I think it was Charlie Rose who was asking. And she goes, well, he's here. And then when he actually comes, he says, we need to work together, and you cannot work unilaterally. We live in a democratic society. You have to still work with the governed bodies. Can't just act independently. Valid questions. I loved all of these scenes. She was the only one who was speaking rationally and sanely and looking to do the right thing, which is what I come back to and saying She's the only hero in all of these characters.
No, you think you're absolutely right. And, as I said sort of before, she's kind of the only one who's sane here. I mean, she's the one who is asking the right questions. She's going through the process. I thought it was a great addition to the point. It's a shame that, those threads aren't really dropped. They're sort of sliced off to make room for the rest of the film here. So, we have some interactions between Lex and Senator Finch here. He wants to import the kryptonite. They know that it can affect Kryptonian DNA. He wants to weaponize it. He wants access to General Zod's body. He wants access to the scout ship that's still basically crashed in Metropolis there. At the same time, Batman is trying to figure out what's going on with Luthor, the arms dealer. He's trying to figure out a way to infiltrate LexCorp to try to get the information. Alfred conveniently lets him know that he's invited to Lex's party. Here we go.
Okay, before we get to Lex's party, how about we just touch base? I think we're cutting back and forth a couple of times because, I know Clark Kent will approach Bruce Wayne at the party. I think you get one or two scenes of Clark and Perry arguing at the Daily Planet. So you want to talk about any of these Daily Planet scenes here?
I think we should talk about some of the Daily Planet scenes here. One that was just kind of spoiled in the trailer there where Perry kind of has that line, nobody cares about Clark Kent taking on the Batman, which is one of my favorite lines of the whole movie. Yeah, why don't you start us off? Delve into the scenes here. How's Clark Kent as a reporter?
Well, I mean, it's a different take. I mean, it just shows the kind of persona who Clark Kent / Kal-El / Superman is, and also who Perry White is. I mean, Perry White's the boss. So he's going to be walking around talking trash and talking shit. But I disliked both these characters, Clark Kent and Perry White. Perry White is a bit more of a reasonable guy he seemed in the Man of Steel. Here, he just seems to be shouting, very aggressive, very confrontational. And the same with Clark Kent. They're just kind of batting heads all the time. And even Perry's batting heads with Lois all the time. I mean, that's okay, because that's part of the characterization. It's just the tonality here and the context. I felt it was even more aggressive. And I found that kind of shocking. I found that both Perry and Clark were dicks. Because Clark is right, but he's going about it the wrong way. I mean, you're going to your boss. He's asked you to do an assignment. Fine, why don't you do your assignment and still do the story on Batman? How many fucking words can you type up fast? You could probably do 1 billion words a minute. So why don't you do your story and then also still work on your Batman? Instead, he's saying, fuck you, Perry. I'm not going to be working on any of this shit. I'm not even going to tell you I'm not working on any of this shit. I'm just going to be looking at the Batman. And I found that very strange. It's a new take on Clark Kent. I don't think I like it.
So, obviously, he's not the mild-mannered reporter here because he's...
But you can be modern. You can be a modern Clark Kent and still be a nice guy and still do your job. You don't need to be bumbling or mild-mannered. Like, mild-mannered to the extreme. You can kind of have that new modern take. But here, the modern take is that he's a dick and he doesn't do his job. Yeah,
this is really the only look we get at Clark Kent as the character here outside of Kal-El or Superman. Okay, so you think he's a dick. Do you think he's putting on anything for his alter ego here? Is he taking the disguise of Clark Kent?
I don't think
at all.
No, not at all. It's not portrayed that way. No. Contextually, it's not there.
I mean, I think I agree with you there. There is doesn't seem to be any difference between this Clark Kent and Superman. Nathan, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't see any characterization of Clark Kent, the mask of Clark Kent. I thought Clark Kent was supposed to be the fastest typist that Perry White had ever seen. That's obviously not the case here. I mean, it would have been nice to see him try to push this story while still doing the job that he puts forward. But I thought it was very bizarre that Perry White is like, no, like that doesn't sell newspapers. I mean, he kind of sounds like a weird, desperate newspaper man just trying to keep the Daily Planet afloat in the 21st century. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, I think that's kind of expected now with this type of universe, is that we're not going to get the mask of Clark Kent. It's kind of unfortunate, but I mean, I think what they decided on was that we don't know how to do this character. So Clark Kent or Superman is just going to be Superman with a pair of glasses on now. Well, and we'll just make do. We'll just have scenes with him.
I want to throw another wrench into this. I know I'm jumping the gun almost to the end, but because we're talking about Clark Kent's mask, does Lois not give it away later on that when she says, I need a helicopter, and she says to Perry, I need to go to Gotham because I need a helicopter. And he goes, no, we don't need the story. She goes, it's not for a story. And Clark Kent's missing this whole time. Superman's battling over there. Would Perry not obviously know that Clark Kent is Superman?
Who fucking knows anymore with this movie? I mean, everyone. I think everyone just knows that Bruce Wayne is Batman. Nobody wants to say it, and this is really jumping ahead. But like at the very end of the movie, it's like, oh, Superman dead. Turn the page, and Clark Kent.
He gets a whole page.
The one, yeah, exactly. Half a page dedicated to our reporter who died, who also looks like Superman. I mean, it's it's just ridiculous.
But how about Andrew? Andrew, how about you just chime in quickly on what you see with Clark Kent and Perry White and Daily Planet stuff?
It was totally off character, exactly how you guys described it. It highlights, and I know Nathan mentioned this earlier, where like it was a lot of focus in this movie about Batman. When leading up into the movie's release, I think Zack Snyder had pretty much said to people that this was like Man of Steel 2. And here you are seeing an out-of-character display for both Perry White and Clark Kent, which we hope is out of character for both of them. And there's not much explanation. And it really is just Superman with glasses. And that's not how we've been used to Clark Kent. That's not who he is. And Perry White being a dick, like granted he was funny and like he was probably the most funny character in this movie, which is saying something. It was out of character for both individuals. And that's where I would have loved to have seen this explored a lot more, just his relationship with people at the Daily Planet.
Well, hold on though. I'm sorry, I don't want to dwell too much, but we did not at all get any characterization of Clark Kent in Man of Steel. He had basically one scene with the glasses on at the Daily Planet.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily out of character. This is all we've seen of him in this universe. And Perry White being concerned about selling papers is exactly what a managing editor would be concerned about, especially in the age of digital news, where they even say it, like nobody's buying newspapers anymore. So part of the problem is, newspapers themselves are kind of anachronistic at this point, and they're trying to run it, but it's so core to Superman that they got to try to figure it out. And I actually enjoy this kind of this interplay between the two of them. I thought Lawrence Fishburne brings a really interesting dimension to Perry White, because he's trying to keep this thing afloat. He's still trying to be a good man, but like shit, we got to sell some papers, otherwise we're all in the street and it doesn't fucking matter anyway.
Well, no, I sort of disagree there. I agree that, he's trying to keep it afloat, which is a very realistic take, but I don't get the sense that he's saying, okay, let's still tell real news.
You don't think he's trying to still tell real news?
Not really. I mean, what indications do we have that he's like, let's dig up the truth on certain things? He's still...
Well, no, but he's never been that guy.
At the same time, though, like Batman has been around for 20 years. So
yeah, exactly.
He probably doesn't...
it's not news.
It's not new news, right? So
okay, fair enough.
I would say that's, but I think what I want to just drop this thread and we can move on. But I think this was an opportunity here, and it's briefly touched upon, that a major philosophical difference between who Superman is and who Batman is and how they operate. Problem here is there really is philosophical differences because they're both downright uber violent. So, and this is where Clark was starting to say, okay, well, Batman's a problem. He's an issue in society, and he wants to approach Bruce Wayne and stuff like that, or Batman himself, because he knows probably he's Batman. But I think it is a bit mixed here. It was a good starting point, but they didn't follow through properly.
They didn't really follow through, but I think there's an interesting concept here is, Clark views himself as operating in the light. Like everything he does is transparent, where Batman's operating in the shadows. It's not exposed. Obviously Batman's view is that, Superman operates without any oversight, and he has enough power to destroy the entire planet if he wanted to, right? So from Batman's point of view, it's more about power and accountability, and from Superman's perspective, it's more about transparency. So these are interesting issues that aren't really explored, unfortunately. So we'll just, as the filmmakers did, we'll just gloss over that and move on. Yeah, we're at the party. So Bruce arrives. Bruce obviously is there to infiltrate Luthor's databanks. I actually thought this was interesting here, where Alfred's talking to Bruce in the headset, and Clark can hear them. He's like his ears perk up. What the fuck is going on here? I love that. I love the look at Henry Cavill's face there, like totally unexpected. What's going on here? Bruce puts the hard drive or his whatever magical download device on Lex's hard drive, which is easily accessible through the kitchen back door, and Lex's weird speech, and then we get the meeting between Bruce Wayne, Clark Kent, the entire exchange of which was revealed in the trailers, but what are you going to do? Nathan, tell me what you thought of, Clark realizing that Bruce Wayne is up to no good and the meeting between these two characters.
Zack Snyder does not appear capable of giving us like truly dramatic moments because it's the big meeting between these two characters. And from the trailers, it almost seemed as though they may know who each other are, but I don't really think that's the case here. I mean, you can maybe make an argument that Superman, okay, maybe this guy's Batman or something, but I mean, I don't know, that's kind of weak case for it. I do like their animosity towards each other, like right from the get-go, but the scene's a little confusing because, I mean, Bruce Wayne's going downstairs repeatedly and nobody's stopping him. And Jesse Eisenberg's speech is very bizarre. It's a very unusual scene. I mean, I was more interested in seeing Wonder Woman more than anything else.
Eisenberg Luthor's speech was terrible. Every time, the more you see him, the more he's just acting it up and playing, with these tics and nuances. And it's just a little weird for me. Doesn't work. I found it interesting that Bruce did not have a date to this event. And it's something interesting that they never played up the Playboy. I know he was sleeping with a girl or a doll, as you pointed out, Jeff. But I found it interesting that they didn't play up this angle. I harken back to every other Batman movie. I mean, more in Batman Begins for that trilogy. And then you talk about Batman and you can, the other Batman movies with Clooney and stuff like that or whoever else. They always had him play up that Playboy role as his mask. And here I felt that not only did they not even give him a date or show him that he's really, really like a Playboy, but I felt that his mannerisms was not really all that different between his true self with Alfred and how he is as Batman a little bit and how he is here. I didn't really feel that there's a lot of differences and nuances there. It's just him and that's it. I don't know if you guys agree. I didn't find that there was a lot there from Ben Affleck.
Well, in this context, though, I mean, you're right. He's Batman in this sequence here, but he is on a mission at the same time. So I don't know if he feels he needs his cover at this point. It didn't really bother me. I mean, I kind of want to talk about the interaction between Bruce and Clark at this point. I mean, I know what's spoiled in the trailer, which is a real fucking shame because it would have been nice to just have it in the movie, but forgetting about the trailer and just taking the movie on its own. I really, really love this interaction between the two because they're talking about the other's alter ego in their alter ego. You know what I mean? Clark's talking about how, Batman is violating civil liberties, and Bruce is talking about how, Superman could just burn the whole place down if he wanted to. I really like that. Totally ruined when Jesse Eisenberg comes in with the inexplicable, Bruce Wayne meets Clark Kent. Like, why the fuck did he come in and do that? I mean, that was.
They should have just left that in the trailer.
Well, you know what?
It makes no sense.
Yeah, it makes no sense. And I was like, you know what? Doesn't make sense. Probably it's not part of the movie. They're going to cut that out because it doesn't make sense. And they didn't cut it out. So I was really disappointed that they left that part in there. That was stupid. But before that, I thought that was really great. Andrew, what are your thoughts here in this little exchange?
It definitely seemed like one or both of them knew who the other was. And so I like that subtle animosity between the two of them and a way for them to have repartee without being in their said costumes. And so the interaction was really good. I liked Harry's suggestion that maybe he should have had a date, which could have been cool had it been Wonder Woman, and her way of getting into the party was to somehow ask Bruce Wayne to ask her out. I don't know. But it was
interesting.
It would have played up on the interaction between the two of them, and I liked the interplay between Bruce Wayne and her. But it was another example of a sequence in the movie where you're like, this has such great elements, and then Lex Luthor shows up. You're like, no, just go away. I'm having fun with this, and it ruins the scene. And so I think there are some really great elements, and there are just some really terrible elements, and it was another wasted opportunity. But like what I saw, I liked. And that's where it's like certain cuts of scenes, if they're able to put it together in a way, I think it could make it a really, I'm just going to drink again.
Yeah. This is also our glimpse at Diana Prince. She doesn't get a lot of screen time here. Personally, I thought I kind of liked her introduction. She's sort of mysterious. She's got sort of the smoldering eyes, makes the mysterious exit. What do we find of the introduction here, Andrew? Is this enough for you? Are you intrigued at this point or what?
Which one was she again?
Okay, fair enough. Next. Terry?
No, I liked her. You know, it's very brief, but that's okay because, you know, you keep it mysterious, you keep it short, and you keep the movie moving. Again, that was one of the concerns early on, as we already touched briefly upon before, was how would Gal Gadot, or however you pronounce her name, be in this role. And I liked her here with these interactions between, like, her introduction here and then her further interactions she'll have with Bruce Wayne later. Not bad. The rest of the party was a bit... not the greatest. It was okay.
Jumping back, joking, of course, aside, like, I thought I really liked her. I think she made a really great first impression. And that's where I think of the three characters, hers was the one I was most skeptical about, based upon like how everyone thought Wonder Woman should look like what her ethnicity should be. Like, there was just all this talk on the internet. And I thought she handled it really well. She was able to go toe to toe with Ben Affleck, which I'm not sure if that says much, but at the same time, she provided enough mystery to the character that you're like, I want to know more about her.
She should have been a true Amazonian woman. Me want snoo snoo.
With one boob.
Me want snoo snoo.
Oh my God.
If she was a true Amazonian woman, Batman would now have no dick.
Yeah.
Nathan, what were your initial impressions here?
Oh, well, I mean, she's probably my favorite character of the whole movie. It's kind of a shame that they did kind of ruin, or the trailers sort of ruined all of her appearances. It would have been nice to have not seen her at all until you see the movie. We can talk maybe about her later scenes, but yeah, a good first impression, but, you know, not really blowing me out of the water or anything.
So we see that she's probably the one who stole the drive that Bruce stuck to Lex's computer there. So he kind of tracks her down, finds the drive. She reveals that she took the drive. She's looking for a photograph, but she couldn't decrypt the data. So she gives it back to Bruce. He takes it back to the Batcave, hooks that shit up to the Bat computer. I just thought it was funny. He plugs it in and it's like decrypting. It's like 1%.
Yeah, very slow. He's got
2%.
Windows 3.1 going on down there.
Yeah, totally. But you know what? I love that, actually. I thought that was one of the that was like one of three jokes in the entire film. But I mean, I thought that was pretty funny. So he dozes off, and we're going to get into the Nightmare with a K here. Obviously, he's dreaming. We see Batman stepping over the ruins of a city in the background, volcanoes spewing ash and fire into the sky. He infiltrates some kind of facility, the awesome Desert Batman outfit there, with the Superman flunkies, and got like he's trying to procure kryptonite, and it's a trap. He gets out his 45 and he busts some caps and some asses, and there's a whole battle ensues here. Maybe a little too slow motion, because you can see all the stuntmen telegraphing the.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
This is a terrible action sequence. I mean, It's cool in the concept, but I mean, there were dudes who went down like soccer players. It was terrible.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. For those who are familiar with DC Comics, we get parademons flying in. Maybe somebody can explain to me why the parademons come in and seem to be taking over, and then Batman goes down and then wakes up in an underground cell, and there's Superman coming down with his disciples kneeling before him, which I thought was a really cool scene. Again, in the trailers, Superman just laser beams a couple of Batman's buddies in half. What I thought was cool is he makes a reference, is like, you took her from me. I'm assuming he's referencing Lois Lane. I like the image where he just grabs Batman's mask and pulls it off, and then Liam Neeson's him in the heart. Nathan, what did you? So tell me about what's your take on the Nightmare? Give me your details. What's happening? What did you think of it?
This sequence is weird because if you don't know anything about the DC universe, I mean, this makes no sense. I find it cool, but like, to be objective about it, it's crazy that you would include this, especially with the parademons and stuff. I mean, what are you supposed to make of this? The one thing I thought was interesting, and maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm out to lunch here, but his future Desert Action Batman costume was very reminiscent of the Red Sun comic book. This sequence, as kind of cool as it is for a fan, I mean, it serves no purpose to the story. And then I'm sure we're going to talk about the sequence with the Flash. This is all, I'm assuming, just for the future Justice League movies. No story purpose for this movie. So, I mean, I think it's very sloppy writing to say, okay, we're going to set up some future movies here now, and we're going to spend 20 minutes doing it.
There's even a more concerning logic issue here, is how the hell does he know about parademons, the Omega symbol, in all this stuff? Why would he be dreaming about this?
Well, presumably it's somehow he is having a vision of the future because of the fact that because the Flash has come back through time, even though they still play it up as a dream, because he wakes up from that, sees the Flash, and then wakes up from that again. So it's pretty sloppy, but yeah, it's sort of a weird, and so therefore it doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense. He has a dream, and then another dream, and then it's reality.
And that's like real like film school bullshit. It's like, oh, I have a bad dream. Oh, it's another dream. I'm gonna wake up. Oh my god, I'm Hitler. Wake up again. It's like, that is screenwriting 101. You shouldn't be doing that in a major motion picture like this. So yeah, I mean, I could sort of buy it if suddenly he came out of it and he's like, it's the Flash and he's stuck in like a temporal vortex or some other like Star Trek thing. I don't know. I mean, I think what they're trying to do is like still like trying to play to the non-fan audience, like, oh, don't worry, it's just a dream sequence. You don't have to worry about time traveling superheroes.
Yeah, but like the Flash is... If we want to skip to the Flash, that doesn't even make any sense even to me. You don't even know this guy's the Flash unless you read about it on the internet.
Oh yeah.
Because he doesn't even look like the Flash. And speaking of the looks, he looked terrible. The actor was terrible. Andrew, I'm going to take a big guess that you watched the Flash TV show.
No. I've never watched a single episode.
Okay, so I'm stupid.
I watched The Flash, right? And I was confused. I was like, yeah. I think it's The Flash.
Yeah,
I'm not
exactly.
100%.
I enjoy watching The Flash because it's light and it's different and it's fun, even though it's not a great show.
Take that back, Harry. Take that back.
It's okay. It's not the best show ever. It's decent.
I'm kidding.
But this Flash looked absolutely ridiculous. And
how could you tell? I couldn't even see him. What could you see?
I saw a weird mask with stupid horns coming out of his face. Or I don't know what the fuck it was. But anyways, I don't even know what he's talking about. Lois is the key, and he's right all the time. Is he talking about Superman? Like he's right that Superman needs to go down?
We don't know.
Well, this is the other thing. Because he never said Lois.
Okay, so when
he never actually said Lois.
Context of this movie, that's how you have to interpret it.
I agree that you should, but I almost wonder if they're like, and I've read that they actually, this was not part of the original script. They filmed this in the middle of production, say, okay, we're going to give a little tease
and that makes
for
sense.
The future movies.
And it's stupid.
And so that's why, exactly. It's completely stupid.
It is ridiculous, confusing, and terrible. I am meant to interpret it that he is right about Superman, because that's how most people are going to interpret it. That's how you have to interpret the scene, is he's right about Superman, you got to go kill him.
Well, hold on.
So that's how you have to interpret it. There's no other logistical reason. Now, if that changes for a future movie, if this is a plug for something else and he's right about something else, then it's a fail here. It doesn't make any sense.
I'm going to just jump in here, gentlemen, because I can. He says you were right about him. It's about Lois. I think he names Lois.
Oh, he does. Okay.
He does name Lois, yeah.
So I think what's happening here is, okay, so I mean, I've read lots of comic books and I've read lots of, the alternate futures and alternate realities and everything, but Lois and Martha are Clark's connection to humanity. And I think what Flash was saying there is, you were right about him. He is referring to Superman, and it's about Lois. Like, she's his connection to humanity, but he's not saying you got to go kill him. He's saying it's like, yeah, it's about her. We need to make sure that he's still connected to humanity, because otherwise we're all lost. And he has that vision of the future where obviously Superman is not on the right side, because in that vision, he says, what did he say? He said, you took her from me, or they took her for her. Yeah. Something like that, right? So she's gone, whether that's Martha or Lois. He suffered a loss and lost it. And that concept has also been played up in
So this Superman is the prequel trilogy Anakin Skywalker, is what you're telling me.
He is, yeah. There's been many, if you want to say that's not true to the character, many portrayals of Superman in the comic books, in the alternate futures and the visions. If something happens to Lois, he doesn't do so well with that.
That's fine. I don't think he'd wipe out the Earth.
And, well, he didn't wipe out the Earth. Apocalypse wiped out the Earth, but he obviously takes that wrong. Well, he gives more than a shit. He gives too much of one, but acting.
No, I think he in this case, if you want to get into the DC canon, I think what's happened here in the vision of the future is that something has happened to make him susceptible to Darkseid's control. Like he's able to control people. I can't remember all like exactly how he's able to do it, but I mean, he can't do it to everyone, and he is able to do it to Superman under certain circumstances. So I think probably that's what they're trying to play up, is that because he's lost that connection, then therefore Darkseid can take him over.
I think that's exactly what they're trying to play out here, is that he doesn't have his connection to humanity, so he's able to be controlled by Darkseid, and obviously that ends poorly for everyone. And I think that's kind of the point of the vision here. And the vision, which I think it's brought on by the Flash coming back in time, that has an effect on Bruce. He sees the future, and borrow a line from the Terminator, one possible future where Superman is not on the right side and Lois is the key. And that's what the Flash is basically saying, is Lois is the key.
Then it's funny if he has this vision, then the rest of the movie does not make any sense. Because I don't
know about that.
No, because so he's going after Superman, he's going to kill him, but he had this vision of a possible future, and he didn't bother to track down Lois Lane, who is the key for him to be good in terms of Batman's vision.
But he doesn't know who Lois is. He doesn't know Clark Kent is Clark Kent. I mean, Lois who? All he sees is the Superman who he already hates being the architect of the Earth's destruction.
I don't know. I still didn't buy it.
And I think he's only still interpreting it as a dream anyways. It's not like, who was that masked man from the future? You know, I mean, it's still played up as a dream.
Yeah, that's where, like, at the end sequence where they're fighting, he would have been like, if you saw Lois, it would have been great. I'm like, now it makes sense. You're Lois.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, wow.
That makes sense.
Really tripping balls on that dream that I had, like, a couple days ago, but now it's crystal clear.
I mean, this dream's pretty vivid, though. I mean, he's not treating it as just a dream. It must have had some kind of impact.
As a piece of filmmaking, the fact that it takes, 4 nerds to parse it, the average film goer, I mean, like, how the fuck can you make sense of any of this?
No, you can't. Well, but it's not meant for the general movie audiences, are too dumb anyways. They're just there to see him punch. And
there goes half of our audience.
Just a message to all of our listeners. Sorry, we're not holding your dick on this. I know you want to see people punch. Fuck you. Okay.
Speak the truth.
Pardon me if I'm skipping anything here. So we come to the Senate hearings.
Okay, before we get to the Senate hearing, I believe then you have the Batman chase where he's chasing the kryptonite. Okay, and I also want to talk about the bat math. The bat math. The bat math. The 1%. If there's even just a 1% possibility he's going to destroy the world, we must act on it as an absolute certainty. Because then that's what prompts him to go after the kryptonite. So I know he's still all pissed about Metropolis, but since then, Superman has been seen saving people, except for killing that terrorist or maybe some other bad guys. But on a general level, he's not causing mass destruction. He's helping people here and there. I want to get your inputs on what your thoughts on this 1%. I don't mind him going after kryptonite as a backup measure, as a safe measure, just in case he has to use it. But the 1%, I don't get this thing.
Well, it's like the gambler's folly. Right. Well, there's a 1% chance that I could hit big in Vegas, so I absolutely must do it.
Yeah. Like, this is the world's greatest detective.
That's the exact same logic. That is the same logic.
I call it bat math because what else am I supposed to say?
I love that you've coined the term bat math. I think that's fucking fantastic.
I would love it if he had a bat abacus.
Trademark and copyright. And I think I agree. I think, Harry, and I think, where you're going with this, it's a little goofy, but I think I can understand where we've seen his actions, and right now it seems like he's okay, but he has the power to burn down the house without a second thought. Like, he could just cut the whole planet in half. He's got to go. There's just no way to reconcile it. He's got to go.
So when he meets the Flash in the future, he can go back and change time, and there's a 1% chance when he travels back through time, he's going to wipe my parents out and I'll never be born. He must die. Is that the bat math? This is what I'm talking about, bat math.
Maybe. Well, maybe. We'll see when he meets the Flash later on.
No, but
that's a question for another day. This is
character assassination here, man. This is what I'm talking about. It doesn't make sense.
No, but at this moment, I'm pretty sure he's going to come around. But at this moment, he's had this vision of the future. He thinks it's a dream, but he can see it. He's seen the bad shit. He's already predisposed to not be a fan of Superman's power.
He's a jealous little bitch. That's what he
Yeah,
is.
no, I think he is a little jealous. You got to take into account like the character's follies, like Batman's follies at this point is he doesn't believe in the goodness of anything. He sees the darkness. He sees the downside. He sees the dark underbelly of everything. That's how he's programmed because of his whole life and how he's lived. So when he sees this creature from outer space who has unlimited power and no accountability, he's going to see the worst. And he's trying to convince Alfred, like Bruce is convinced 100% that he's our enemy. But he's trying to say to Alfred, if it's even 1%, we can't take the chance. So we have to take him out. It's just one guy. We got to take him out because it's not worth the risk. Because that's how he thinks. He's wrong. He sees it that way. Because that's all he's known.
Even though there's other metahumans out there that Superman could help against, but that's okay.
He doesn't know that yet.
He will before the final match, though.
He doesn't know that now, but he doesn't know that before the final match.
During this scene, he doesn't know that.
He doesn't know right now.
He doesn't know that, but later he does, and he still goes and wants to kill Superman.
Well, but he does. What does that have to do? He's probably seen the other metahumans going like, fuck, I got to kill 4 other motherfuckers now. Shit.
The world's greatest detective would keep a guy like that around and just have the kryptonite as a backup plan. No,
not necessarily. No, he's thinking like, I got to take out everybody one by one by one.
No way.
Jeff, no, I agree with you. I mean, I partly agree with Harry. The line is dumb, but I agree with the sentiment, because if you want to take like maybe a real life type of scenario, I mean, governments spend tons of money fighting small numbers of terrorists, and we kind of live in this this age of terrorism, but the actual chances of anyone being killed by terrorism is, at least in the Western world, or North America anyways, is generally quite low. People go on and on about trying to fight terrorism, so I mean, the sentiment is kind of there, but the way it's portrayed in the movie is quite literally, not that Superman's a terrorist, but I mean just like the way some people can perceive threats. It's that, well, it doesn't matter how low percentage it is. If it's in your face and it seems scary, that you have to do everything in your power to squash it, no matter what the potential risk is.
I think that Batman would be smarter than that.
No, I agree with that too. I think that they don't really portray him as a little bit crazier than he should be, because he should be seeing, Superman like saying, well, I have questions about it, but he's like trying to say, okay, if things go south on us, we need a backup plan, which is actually more in line with what the character would be. It's like he prepares for every contingency, but here it's just like, no, I don't like him. I'm just, like you said, Harry, he's a jealous little bitch, and he just wants to take him out.
Andrew, what's your thoughts? Andrew, you haven't piped in here yet.
I'm just more sighing to myself and just thinking about this movie more and more and more.
Okay, that's interesting. So let's move on. No. Go ahead.
No, there's not much more to say. I think it's just a little disappointing that immediately he just jumps to the gun. It's like, we got to wipe this guy out. Like there's no middle ground. Like this is a guy that doesn't kill his enemies. Like Batman, well, granted, this version of Batman tends to be a little trigger happy and looks to break guys' necks with ease. But the Batman that we kind of know is like, he's not a guy that just kills for the sake of killing. Yet all of a sudden here he's going to go against like the biggest principle that Batman has that separates himself from the guys that he puts away. It's a big jump. I know he had a really bad dream, and I know it was really messed up, but like still, like there is no type of investigation. Like he's not a detective. He's just like,
I'm a hunter. He says it later. He pretty much admits it.
Yeah.
I'm a hunter. He says that later.
Oh, I totally forgot about that. That's a good point.
What did you say? Sorry, what did you say?
Later in the movie, before he actually fights Superman, he visits Wayne Mansion one last time. Alfred comes and sees him, and he talks about the first generation Waynes were hunters. And that's the legacy he's going to go back to and leave by taking out Superman as a hunter. He's not Batman anymore. He's something else. But that's just me.
You know what? That's interesting you bring up. He's not Batman anymore. He is something else, because this mission that he's taken is larger than anything he would have ever done before. I think it's kind of interesting that he's taking this upon himself to take out this creature. Batman's not a murderer, but Superman is not human, so he doesn't care. He's an alien. It doesn't matter.
That to me shows that the intellect behind Batman is just absolutely not there. He has no intellect.
Well, But how so?
I understand about these risks, but if you're saying now that, he's an alien, I don't care. Even though he's very much like us, he has rights too. If you just want to get it on a level playing field here, I don't buy that. But it's
not a level playing field, though, is it? Because Superman could choose to do.
You're justifying.
Whatever he wants.
Well, no, but he's not doing whatever he wants. So this is the problem I have here.
But he is doing whatever he wants.
No, okay, but in a sense, yes. But as I said, he's still saving people. It's like if he was just sitting around still causing all the damage he did in the first movie, then I would agree with you. There's no justification here for Batman's actions at all.
And that's where I think some backstory, like a movie leading up to this, like perhaps like how Robin died and Batman still holds himself accountable, is that he had a chance to take out Joker and he didn't. And like Joker wipes out hundreds of people and he holds himself accountable for not being able to make that ultimate decision to wipe out a guy that takes out arguably his, Robin was saying is his closest relative, but it costs him dearly because he isn't willing to pay that price. So for here, he's not going to take that chance because this is humanity that's at risk. And that's why he's going to cross that line finally. And so he's turned into he's gone from the Batman that we know to this vigilante hunter. And that's where it's like there's a lot that they could have done to build up this situation that would provide great context. But it's just such a paradigm shift for Batman that you're like, what, how did that just happen? What?
Yeah.
He's already opposed to this thing that calls itself Superman. He's already opposed to what it's done. I mean, he's a thing to Batman. He's just a creature who's caused destruction. He's brought the war to Earth.
So again, you're missing.
He's a danger.
But since then, has he not been helping people? Yes, he has.
So as we go forward here, there's also the question of, does that balance the scales, I guess, in Batman's view? How many people died in Metropolis and how many people has he saved? What's true or not isn't really the issue here. It's what he thinks. It's like, okay, he saves a cat out of the tree. Everybody cheers. But tens of thousands of people have been destroyed in one instance, and he's saved a couple of cosmonauts and okay, so a couple of people out of a burning building.
You're telling me Batman is then the dumbest motherfucker on the planet. He's the dumbest superhero ever. He is the shittiest superhero. He is dumb because he should know that
he's just calling it as he sees it.
Okay, but Superman he caused the destruction by himself, or was he also trying to help people because Zod and company were coming and invading the fucking planet? So
Impossible to know from his perspective.
Then he's the dumbest detective ever. Batman's better than that.
Dumbest detective ever. He can only know what he can know. How can he know what he was doing in the Battle of Metropolis?
I guess the other guys there, Zod and company and stuff, they weren't there. He didn't see. He could do his investigations there. Lois was there. He could find out stuff. This is Batman. He pulls shit out of his ass all the time to solve riddles and puzzles. So hey,
what do you say? He could find out stuff like that? Doesn't mean anything. Like he holds him responsible. We talked about Man of Steel. Everybody said in Man of Steel, everybody who watched it, everybody said it was Superman's fault. And now we're saying, Batman should know.
You're not getting me. It is Superman's fault that the way it was portrayed in Man of Steel, he didn't try and send the fight somewhere else. That's his fault. In the grand scheme of things, you can't just sit there. Well, then he's just like everybody other dumb motherfucker on the planet.
Well, hold on a second.
Okay, but hold on, guys. Hold on. Like we could talk about this point all day. I think actually it's weird that you're both right on this point. I think it's just a problem with the way the story is portrayed. I think from the Batman perspective, it's not just the fact that he battled Zod in Metropolis and bad shit went down. It's also the fact that he's virtually unstoppable, but he has no. We sort of see his perspective, but we're also seeing like the other side of things. We're seeing Superman. How can you not see how good Superman is? And so this is just sort of like the poor writing here. Superman hasn't really done anything, but you can kind of take like a low level view of it and say, well, yeah, okay, I guess he turned bad. It's just a problem with how the whole thing is written. There's a lot of nuance that should be going on here, and we're not getting it.
Agreed, 100%. But in terms of Batman himself, why doesn't he just, a more logical Batman, more calm and intellectual Batman would say, I'm getting my kryptonite as my backup plan. If this guy ever gets out of line again, he's dead. He hasn't done anything since Metropolis except okay things.
No, I agree. And
then
again,
if,
I think this
you know what I
comes
mean?
back
But now I'm going to
bad
attack
script
him.
writing.
That's just bad writing, and it's a bad Batman. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, no, it is. And the other thing is that this is the other problem with the movie in general is that they take a lot of imagery from Dark Knight Returns and other various Batman and Superman comic books. They use a lot of the imagery without any of the real reasons as to why those images exist. What you have is this grizzled Batman. I think they try and explain it with like, well, hey, you know what? There are no good guys anymore. There's only like, there are no good intentions, right? So I think they try and explain it that way, and it's a little sloppy. So I mean, I again, like I sort of see Batman's sentiment about it, but the portrayal is just not good Batman portrayal.
Not even that. Alfred's even saying the same thing. He's not our enemy.
Well, Alfred's a ghost, so he doesn't really.
Anyways, why don't we move on? Because I'm sure we can talk about this a bit more in our closing thoughts. But Jeff, we were at that bat chase with the Kryptonite. Does anyone want to comment on that chase?
Other than Batman driving his car through somebody else's car, probably decapitating him.
And into a guy's face. He drove the Batmobile into someone's face.
You know what the funny thing is I found that he put that tracker on. Batman normally would probably track the vehicle to wherever it is and then steal it at the warehouse. But then he goes through the whole chase, and then as you're talking about, he killed people along the way and stuff like that, but then he actually plows through the truck he's tracking, and through sheer dumb luck, he did not dislodge the tracker. I found, oh my God, this is just a ridiculous scene.
That's what we call bad accuracy.
Yeah.
Fucking nailed it.
Yeah, he nailed it.
Yeah, he nailed it. Batman, he knows where to put that tracker. He knew he was going to drive through that truck later. He knew where to put it. A little goofy just to put a car chase into the film here. It's unnecessary. I mean, it's a cool chase, but logically, it falls apart.
But then how about the first meeting? Because this chase then ends with Batman meeting Superman the first time. I actually laughed out loud because I thought it was kind of corny. The way he turned around the corner and then Superman was there, and then you just see the look on Ben Affleck's eyes. He's like, ah. You think he actually got aroused, and then he actually stepped on the gas and then bounced off of him.
Who, Batman got aroused?
Yeah, I think so.
Or Ben Affleck.
Or Ben Affleck.
Which one?
One of the two.
Oh, yeah. The sexual tension was palpable in that scene.
Yeah, that's why he asked him, do you bleed?
Oh, God.
Okay.
You guys walked into that one. You walked into that one.
I don't think
actually, I was a little disappointed with the scene. I mean, I did like the scene with the Batmobile hitting Superman. I mean, again, like I'd seen that scene had been, I think I saw it on like Jimmy Kimmel or something like that scene. And so I thought, okay, in the movie, there'll be a bit more dialogue. Or it's like, no, that was it. Superman just let Batman go.
Well, I kind of like the scene. He's like, the Bat is dead. So
he just gives him an ultimatum, and then he gets the hell out of there. Though.
I kind of like that, though, but Batman's not backing down. I kind of like that. It's I like the line.
Well, I think the scene itself is fine. I just wish there's on its own, just within he hit him with the car, and then Superman walks over, tears the. I mean, I like that part too, where he tears the top of the Batmobile off and stuff. And I don't know. I guess I wanted a little bit more. I guess the scene is fine.
I wanted a bit more from Superman. I mean, again, this is an asshole Superman. I'm just going to give my ultimatum. So, I mean, like, I'm trying to defend Superman in the sense that I don't like Batman's justifications to kill him right off the bat. But the more and more we keep seeing Superman, the more of an asshole he is. I can kind of understand the justifications. This guy's a dick. I don't know. I don't like the Superman here. He's just like, I'm going to give you an ultimatum. The Bat's dead. Don't go to your light. Fuck you. I'm out of here. I don't know. You think he'd have a chat with him a little bit?
Yeah, that's like a perfect opportunity for Bruce to be like, hey, I've been meaning to talk to you about what happened 18 months ago.
No, but they had a chat. Superman's like, you're done. This is mercy. Go back to the fucking cave and don't come out again. That's the chat. Like,
so this is Superman. Again, we're talking about now, let's go back to the arc from Man of Steel to here. So I know it's only a year and a half later, but is this who we want Superman to be? I know
it's not a question of who we want him to be, but who is he?
He's an ass.
He's not an ass. He gave him a chat. He could have just picked him up, flown him to the police station. Like, I'm sure you have 3,001 outstanding warrants on this dude. Here he is. But he's like, this is over. Batman's dead. This is mercy, peace, and then he. If you got
that contextually out of that scene, I really.
That's exactly what he said. Besides peace,
exactly
he said Batman's dead.
No, I worry for you, Jeff. You know,
that's what he said.
That's not a nice guy.
Well, Superman's not a nice guy, isn't he?
So, okay, so that's my point. He's not a nice guy.
Well, so what?
This is not good.
It's fine. He was nice, and you know what? In context of like the vigilante, it was a pretty nice gesture to be like, "I'm not coming after you. Just chill. You're done, and I'm out."
I kind of agree. In that same scene, I honestly thought they would write in. He says, like, "Look, I know you're Bruce Wayne. You know, I can see under your mask, and you know, if you're." You know, I didn't even get the impression that he's like, "Okay, I'll out you."
Yeah,
at all. It's just like, you know what, you're done. Just go away.
Yeah, there could have been like some interplay, like Superman saying it's like, what you're doing is killing people. What I do is I'm saving people, like bringing guys to justice.
See, that would have been better.
And that's where it's like it was missing. And so like as much as I like Henry Cavill as Superman, like it was another missed opportunity. There was some cool moments to it, but there's still like, I wanted more.
Okay, yeah.
Let's move on.
This is bringing out the best of all of us. I really like
this. Someone's going to die at the end of
Nothing like a movie to bring us all together as friends.
Yeah, I think Congress is the next major scene here. So Superman flies in. I like the image of this where he kind of lands there. There's all the protesters. He strolls in, and I don't know about you guys, but he looked like he was 900 pounds of muscle rolling into Congress there.
You mean 900 pounds of rubber suit?
No, I think that's all Cavill.
That's not Cavill.
He was 220 pounds. He was, all accounts, he was twice as large. Well, twice as much muscle as Man of Steel. I'm sure they padded the suit. I'm not saying they didn't. But you're going back, you're saying like, well, they didn't pad Christopher Reeve's suit. Christopher Reeve wasn't 220 pounds. He was nowhere near as big as Henry Cavill.
I'm not comparing. Cavill naturally is bigger than Christopher Reeve. I'm just saying, you're saying he's walking all in there looking all buff. I mean, that padded suit is making him look a lot bigger than he is. Anyway,
but he's big.
Fine.
Maybe he hit the gym in the morning. We don't know that.
He's huge. He's a fucking beast.
Could have had a couple protein bars.
No, Superman, he landed outside.
I'm going to get a kick out of it, Jeff, that's what makes
They
Superman.
cut out the scene where Superman was doing push-ups outside the Senate building.
Yeah.
I'm glad that's what Superman means to Jeff. He's got to be this big,
I do.
And he's getting aroused, and I love it when he struts in, because the physicality of Cavill is what makes Superman.
I do love it when he struts in, and the physicality does work for me, and he's a monster. I'm not going to disagree with you, dude.
You in this generation love him for that. That's great.
I do, man. Him and Ben.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Ben was really that big. Oh, wow. Give me a break.
He was pretty big.
He was in shape. He was not big like that. I'm sorry.
He was pretty big, man. He was also.
You need glasses, buddy.
This is where the next movie we review has to be Deadpool to bring us all back together because. Oh my god!
All right. Anyways, let's talk about the Congress.
Girls in. I was just looking at his pecs. I don't know what happened in this scene. I was just looking at his.
Are you sure you weren't going about 6 to 7 inches more down? I don't know.
Oh my god, that's only 6 or 7 inches down, man, Harry. Like, I'm questioning your body size if that's the case.
I need to get another.
Harry's actually only 3 feet tall. That's why.
No, you're right, Harry. I was looking at just his abs. That's true. So he rolls into Congress, and Senator Finch is talking some shit about whatever accountability. She sees basically a mason jar full of pee, I assume, based on the earlier scenes, and
kind of wish she drank it. A sip. Like, it would have been interesting if she actually took a sip and then said, what the fuck is this? And then realized what it was, right?
I think she got a pretty good idea.
Well, no, she knew what it was. I'm just saying it would have been I thought it would have been a bit more funny if she actually took a sip.
It would have been funny. There's no question.
Although I actually have to wonder if in a PG or PG-13 movie, if you can consume human urine.
Do you think that's why it's going to be a rated R cut? Is that we find out that
she's just fucking guzzling gallons of urine. There's a whole scene of just Lex Luthor. I'm sure Lex Luthor, he's just got mason jars full of urine everywhere. Like, that's how eccentric he is. That's what gives it the R rating.
I'm now officially buying that Blu-ray.
Yeah, so the next scene is the credits that roll. And, you know what? This scene is the biggest piece of disappointment for me because I really wanted to hear Superman stand up for himself and give his side. But at the same time, I don't know. Senator Finch can obviously see something's wrong, and boom, the Senate blows up, the whole building's toast, and that's it. He doesn't get the chance to give his side of the story. So part of me was upset that I didn't get to hear, like, that would have been a really cool moment, and we didn't get to see it. But the other part of me is like, that's what Lex Luthor was robbing the entire world of. He didn't want anybody to be able to see that. So I'm kind of mixed on it. I don't know. Nathan, why don't you ring in here on the scene, Congress, the bombing, what you thought?
Well, that's kind of an interesting take on what the purpose of this scene is, because for the life of me, I can't understand what this scene is supposed to do, because again, like what is Lex Luthor's end game here with blowing up the Senate building? Or is it Senate or Congress? I don't know.
Whatever.
Okay, but
I think it's Congress. I think it's
okay. I'm just going to alternate between both. Because are people supposed to blame Superman for this, ostensibly an act of terrorism against him? So it's very confusing, I thought, because then again, is it Luthor eliminating a roadblock in his path to destroy Superman, Senator Finch? But I agree with you, Jeff, that it's disappointing that we don't, Superman has had 2 lines in the whole movie up to this point. It would have been nice to see him defend himself in front of his detractors, even if it's only a couple of lines.
Harry, what do you think?
Agree with you guys. I wish that he was given a chance to defend himself, but I agree that's why Luthor set off the bomb at that time. It deprived everybody of giving him a chance to defend himself and what he stands for. The funny thing is I don't want to get it again, don't want to rehash it, but I really don't think even he knows at that point what he stands for anyways. So I also found it funny that when the bomb blew up, he just kind of stood there wooden. I was hoping for a little bit of a reaction instead of just like a feigned disappointment from Cavill. And you would think the Superman would maybe try and, I know mostly everybody died, but you think he'd try and immediately react and try and blow the fire out and do something. I know that's not the point of the movie. It's just disappointing over and over again for me seeing Superman portrayed this way. The immediate next scene, so it's related to this, is when the Congress blows up. You see Batman get that letter saying you let your family die. So again, another thing here is, can't he see he's being played at this point? So again, something that's irks me a little bit, but that's all I got to say.
Andrew.
Another lost potential scene. Like, it had, setup was great. I think it would have been cool had it been like a closed door Senate session where you hear a little bit of what Superman has to say, and you can see people warming up to the idea that this guy is not a bad guy, and then it blows up because you can see like Superman's like, yes, I finally convinced them I'm a good guy. I know the intent of the scene, and I think maybe it had a part that Lex Luthor was just trying to show Batman because he wanted the two of them to fight, that like Superman was a dangerous guy. It was a letdown. Like, they killed off Holly Hunter, which her character was great. It was telegraphed as soon as I think Lex met that guy for the first time, and you could see like he was going to use him for some diabolical scheme. And as soon as you saw him in the Senate in the Senate room, you're like, okay, it's going to blow up. So it was another, yes, this looks great. Shit, I can't believe they did that.
Actually, one thing that's interesting is it's sort of the central premise of this whole movie is that Holly Hunter's character is, does the world need Superman? Is he a threat? Is he our savior? And then we blow her up. We get rid of all those ideas and we just go to punching in the face. Right. So I think it's a great meta analysis of just killing her character.
Yeah.
But the fact but again, as everyone sort of reiterated, the fact that we don't get to hear Superman till his side. Another problem with the story writing is that you could have built it up. Okay, he's building some trust, and then you take that away. But we don't even get to that crescendo. It's just all flat, boom, and we just drop the bottom out.
But see, here's the interesting thing now. So moving on to the immediate next scene, I believe, is Superman's on Lois's balcony in DC, I believe, in her hotel room balcony. So here you get to hear what he truly thinks. I mean, he's kind of he says, oh, well, Superman was never real. He's just a dream of Kevin Costner. And, and then he flies. He says, I'm giving up. I'm, going back on my emo trip. But the funny thing I found here is you're doing a disservice to Man of Steel too, because he only talks about he was a dream of a farmer. An honest farmer. But how about Jor-El? His experiences in Man of Steel. His own father, even though I don't like we were questioning some of his motivations of Jor-El, what he was trying to do, but he was still saying, you can save them. You will be something for them. So isn't this betraying some of the messages that were set up in Man of Steel 2? He doesn't even consider anything Jor-El said. He's just saying Superman was just a dream of a farmer.
I can't believe I totally forgot that. That is such a good point, Harry. Is that, you know what? I know what my real dad said, but fuck that guy.
He doesn't care about what Jor-El said because Jonathan Kent is his father.
No, but I think
also,
what Harry's getting at is that in Man of Steel, he still took Jor-El's things he said to heart. Yeah, he's a man with two fathers, but the fact that none of those callbacks to like his greater call to destiny of what Jor-El was talking about were really talked about here. And in fact, in Man of Steel, Kevin Costner, it was kind of like, I don't know, maybe,
he was kind of on the fence,
Yeah, exactly.
You have to decide. You can be the person you want to be. You have to make that decision.
Yes,
but
which I liked.
Yeah, which is fine, a new take. And, he's leaving it up to his son to make the right choice. And he believed that his son would make the right choice. I think that's the interpretation at the end of that movie. But it was Jor-El that kind of steered Kal-El in the right way to be Superman. So I don't understand why he's saying it's just only a dream of a farmer. Why even bother still wearing the suit if he still has doubts? You want to keep making Man of Steel over and over again. That's fine. I just wish there was more of a growth here.
Well, maybe Zack Snyder forgot to watch Man of Steel.
Maybe. I don't know. What do you guys think?
We've narrowed down the title to the next film, Man of Steel 2, My Two Dads.
Yeah. It would have been great had Russell Crowe just walked in and they recreated the scene from Star Trek Generations and I don't know. It was just, I was like, when I saw it at the top of the mountain, I'm like, really? It's like these guys have got some really trippy imagination. I don't know.
Well, they are from another planet. I mean, you don't know.
True, but just Russell Crowe high-fiving Kevin Costner is like, yeah, I feel the same way. And you're like, okay, I'm drinking more.
I even get the sip.
And we heard it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Maybe they need to do like a road trip movie. Jonathan Kent and Jor-El.
How about we lighten up the mood even more here? How about we get to, believe the next scene here is Batman Rocky training sequence.
Yeah.
You're going to tell me that you saw that sequence and you thought Ben Affleck was not huge in that scene.
He's in shape. He wasn't massive. He's big.
Well, okay.
He's not as big as the suit makes him out to be. That's my only point.
You're right. Yeah.
But he's still a fucking beast.
Oh yeah.
I actually think
bigger.
I actually think he looked
big.
bigger in other movies, but that's just me. It's stupid to talk about it anyways. But I just wanted to point out something I noted down is they showed him only doing the hammering, the CrossFit, and doing weights. I just wanted to, always have fun with Batman. No parallel bars, no pommel horse. I mean, it'd be kind of nice to see. I want to see an internet gif of Ben Affleck on the pommel horse there.
What is this fucking Jim Cotta now? Come on, man. I mean,
No, he's obviously a fan of CrossFit.
Well, that's Zack Snyder all the way. This whole sequence, that's probably just, Zack Snyder's like, yeah, this is how I work out. So this is how Batman.
Yeah. I hate to say I have been a guy who has hit a large monster truck tire with a sledgehammer. It doesn't get you huge, gentlemen. Let me just... Okay, so Batman's working out. He's getting
It's just
huge.
like the movie. It's just like the movie. It's just kind of...
Yeah, where the fuck are we? So Batman's getting huge. He's gearing up for the final battle with Batman, or with Superman, sorry. He's got the kryptonite. What about the montage? He's training, but they're also breaking down the kryptonite and weaponizing it. I actually thought this was really kind of neat. The kryptonite wasn't easy to weaponize, so they had to, use a giant laser, break it down. I thought it was kind of cool. Anybody else want to weigh in on the construction of the kryptonite weapons?
It's okay.
Nope.
Not a bad scene, not a great scene. It was okay. Interesting. It was quick, so it's okay.
Yeah, no, it was quick. Definitely not a whole lot. So Luthor kidnaps Martha. He also kidnaps Lois. We get the scene. He throws Lois off the top of the LexCorp tower or wherever to get Superman's attention. So Superman realizes that Luthor's got his mom captive. Also realizes that Luthor knows exactly who he is, what's going on, and he demands that he brings in the head of Batman. Otherwise, she gets it. He's got, an hour to figure it out. Batman's got his sweet mech suit. Got the bat signal going, ready for the battle, and here we go. So I just want to talk a little bit about the setup. Did this work for you guys? Give me your impressions here.
Yeah, if you guys, this is video chat, you just see me shaking my head. I'm like, it was like, what's his mom's name again? But no,
You've never read a comic book before.
It's like, oh my God, they're both named Martha.
Oh, we're not there yet.
Okay. I hated it. Like, it just seemed like out of the blue, Lex Luthor knew who Clark Kent was and just like, I'll take his mom and his girlfriend and like that's how I'm gonna make him fight Batman. Like, there wasn't any lead up. There wasn't any development. Superman's just like, okay, fine, I'll go fight him.
No, he doesn't say that. He says he's going to go ask for his help.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me chime in here, Jeff. He does talk to Lois. He did say he's going to ask for his help, but if not, he's going to kill him.
He didn't say he was going to kill him.
Yeah,
he said,
says,
I'm going to go ask for his help.
No, he said, or I have to kill him.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
I would have to give, but
Not would. He said
the way he said it was like, that would be my other choice, but he wasn't married to that. He didn't want to do it.
I would argue that after trying for one instance of talking to him, then after that, it was just, he didn't care. He had plenty of opportunity to keep talking.
As he said, if I wanted you dead, you'd be dead.
Yeah, so then he doesn't keep talking?
But he didn't kill him.
So he doesn't keep talking. He doesn't keep saying, I need to ask for your help. Doesn't happen until the spear is about to be plummeted into his body. Then he finally just says, Martha, just save Martha. That's it. But he had another 5 minutes of opportunity to say stuff. He didn't say it at all.
Yeah, he could have been like at the very beginning, he was like, they have my mom. And they're like, oh, okay, now I get it.
To be fair,
makes sense.
Yeah, to be fair though, I mean, he did try when he first landed and Batman did that Sonic thing on him. After that, he didn't care.
Yeah, but all this to say is like, they have my mom. Like,
yeah, I know. I agree with you. I agree with you, Andrew. But I know to have them fight, you can't do that. So you have to let that slide.
Correct. That's why I just found it such a stretch. And like, yeah, the whole premise behind the movie, it's called Batman versus Superman. And I just found the plot was paper thin in regards to why they actually, like, Batman, you can understand his rationale, but Superman, I'm like, I don't fully comprehend exactly what he's doing in his actions. Like, there are elements that it's one of those, once again, a scene that like it has potential, but the execution just isn't there for me.
Okay, so Nathan, what do you think of the lead up to the fight here?
It was interesting that once again, Lois has to fall in a movie. Like, I mean, that's the one defining trait of Lois Lane is that she must fall. I think it's like,
it's not a Superman movie unless she's falling.
Well, exactly. I think it's just like, that's just contractually how it has to work. I did kind of like the reveal that Lex Luthor knew who he was. We didn't kind of, waste a whole bunch of scenes of him, looking at stupid surveillance photos or some other convoluted evidence. It's just he kind of knew. Yeah, I know. Jeff, I agree with you. I mean, I think the context of what he's saying is that I'm going to have to ask him for help, but yeah, I might have to kill him. That's not really his intent. It's just like, oh shit, if this might go south on me. And that's sort of his last resort. I mean, I think the words themselves, I guess maybe are interpreted one way or the other. But I mean, I prefer to interpret it as I want to try and make the best of a bad situation here.
Yeah, that's kind of the way I took it too. Is I'll do it if I have to because obviously she's more important than this guy. But I'm going to do my best. Yeah, we don't need to get into the details of the fight, but the fight occurs. So we get to the fight, the battle. Let's just go start to finish here from when Batman busts out his sonic weapon to right when he grabs the kryptonite spear. What's your take on the battle between the Titans here?
I really liked it. I actually wish there was more of it. I don't want to say it was a letdown for me. I think the only letdown was that it was not, we had to wait so long into the movie to get to this Titanic fight, and it's so short. A couple of things I really liked was one scene in particular when Batman is punching Superman in the head and the kryptonite gas is wearing off. So Superman just is reacting less and less to the punch. I mean, the look on his face, and it was a slight, almost comedic moment in this heavy comedy of a movie. A couple of the other bits and pieces, yeah, I mean, it's a little fuzzy. I mean, by that point in the movie, I mean, I was just so inundated with stuff. It was sort of hard to remember, but it kind of felt like what I remember from comic books growing up. It borrowed a lot of the imagery of comic books, maybe not with any of the true meaning behind it, but I liked it. I know other people don't really like it all that much and think it's a letdown, but I don't know. Those are my thoughts.
All right, Perry, what do you think?
Yeah, I enjoyed it for the most part. I still, you have to make it from a movie standpoint and a comic standpoint that Batman has to get his stuff in. I know I've said before that I don't buy Superman not resolving this in a millisecond, even just tying him up or in steel or something like that. I still stand by that sentiment, but for what I saw in terms of the fight, it was entertaining, but it was too short. The only thing I didn't like is kind of resolved itself too quickly for Batman to get the upper hand on Superman. I know that's dealing with kryptonite. I think there could have been a little bit more of a resistance that Superman could have put up there, and in terms of defending himself. And again, I still think that throughout this fight, Superman had multiple opportunities to say the words that Andrew said. Lex has my mom. Help me. That's it. But he didn't. He just had his growling face, and he just wanted to hurt Batman. And at the same time, Batman also didn't want to listen. Didn't like that, but I mean, I don't know how you could really go about that if you want to keep showing a fight.
The reason I say I was disappointed is that it was just similar to what Nathan mentioned. Like, we waited such a long time, but then it was also really short in comparison to how long the movie felt. Like, the movie felt really long in comparison. Like, it was 2.5 hours, but there are certain movies that duration goes by really, really quickly. With this movie, I felt as if it dragged on, and to have this fight be as short as it was in relation to the rest of the movie, it was billed as Batman v Superman, and the fight was how long? Maybe
it was 6 minutes.
Yeah, it wasn't that long. The abrupt end to it, there are elements that were super cool. Like, I did like everything that they showed, but I just wanted to see more. Like, there was so much of a build up, and it was so quick, and it ended even quicker. Like, I love the end of The Dark Knight Returns. The ending to that fight's pretty cool. And this one, it was just like, all he had to say was Martha, and Batman's like, what did you say?
Why don't we touch on that?
Hold on. That's a separate piece, I think. So we'll get to that point after.
I was also convinced Aquaman was going to show up. Like, when Lois was trying to get the kryptonite spear, I thought Aquaman was just going to swim up and hand it to her. Like,
I thought that the same thing too.
I did too. Yeah, I thought it was coming, but I thought the fight was pretty solid. I mean, part of the problem here is you get a couple guys who are just, punching really strongly at each other. And, you can't do an interesting choreographed fight. There's not a whole lot you can do. I thought it was done reasonably well, but there was a ceiling on how good this fight was going to be, just from a fisticuffs standpoint here. I liked how they managed to even the odds with the kryptonite gas grenade, but even that wasn't really working.
He didn't make him bleed either.
No, he did. He did make him bleed because he cut him with the spear. Sorry, Andrew, but you are wrong.
I'm used to
Thanks for coming on the show today.
I'm here to make you guys all look a hell of a lot better based upon my low standards.
Well, you're doing a good job. So congratulations. So we're through the fight. Lois arrives on the scene, and Superman's kind of resigned himself to death, and now it's his mission just to make sure his mother is safe. So he tells Bruce to save Martha, and this touches off in Batman the name of his mother. Why did you say that name? I'll weigh in on it first because I read lots of reviews, and most reviews from film critics are very critical of this, where they got the same name. What a coincidence. This has kind of been a joke for 70 years where their mothers have the same first name. This is the one moment in the film where I actually had an emotional reaction because I thought it was played very well. And, Zack Snyder kind of played off of a joke that's been played many times with it, the same first name, but they have the same first name. That's not something they made up for this film. That's been in the canon for decades. And it allows Superman to tap into Batman's humanity. He, at this last moment, does what Superman does. It's not the heat vision. It's not the flying. It's not the invulnerability. It's not any of that stuff. It's you are human too. And this is what you're capable of. And Batman finds his humanity at this last moment. I thought it was great. I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Nathan, what was your thoughts here?
I completely agree with you because it's something that's in canon and they kind of use that to their advantage, right? So, I mean, I would have hated it if they didn't have the same name, but then for this movie, they did make it. But I thought it was a nice way to I mean, there's probably better ways to resolve their conflict earlier in the film, but the way that this played out, I thought, given what the rest of the movie is, I thought this worked really well.
Harry?
Terrible all the way around.
Okay.
Garbage shit.
All right.
I didn't like it at all. I don't buy that should change. I know that all of a sudden it's very cliche, in my opinion, that all of a sudden he's just transported back to as a child. I don't know how that nullifies his stupid bat math earlier, because the 1% risk is still there. I know it's supposed to make him realize that, oh, this guy is kind of like me, or like any one of us. I get that. But doesn't change any of them. The motivation isn't there from what I've seen before from this character of Batman to all of a sudden stop from killing Superman.
No, but I think in Batman's mind, it humanizes him. I mean, I kind of agree that like the film has some problems with the bat math leading up to this point. But I mean, I think the reveal here is that Batman is now seeing Superman in a different light.
Yeah, I get it. But this shouldn't be the key to him realizing that who Superman is. I think that's a cop-out on the character of Superman and the intelligence of Batman. But that's the problem with the movie is this is how it's been constructed up to this point. I think it's just a failure of the whole movie, and I didn't like the scene. I didn't buy it. I get what you guys are saying, and I get what Snyder's trying to do here, but I didn't like it.
Andrew, what's your take here?
So it's another one of those scenarios where the execution, I can, based upon personal stuff that's happened to me in the past with my mom, like I can see like the emotional impact like of that moment where he realizes like there is a human side to Superman, like what he's doing isn't right. It did have an emotional impact with me. I'm not going to deny that. It's not how I wanted that fight to end.
How did you want it to end?
As I said, I did like The Dark Knight, comparing it to the comic. I don't know how they could have ended it in that way. I'm not paid the money to write these things.
It was very abrupt, but I think that if you're going to steal one thing from The Dark Knight Returns, is that he leaves Superman beaten. He would take that kryptonite spear, he could cut him the way he did on his face and say, if you ever get out of line or whatever, just remember, I'm always going to be here to rein you in. Or something along those lines. Instead of he was just going to kill him. I think that would have been, and then you could have Lois come in or something else happening and he realizes that, oh, you know, okay, your mom's kidnapped and I'll help you.
You know, it's funny that you bring that up, Harry, because that line from the end of Dark Knight Returns, that's how they announced this film.
Yeah.
Was that dialogue, and then they don't use it for the movie. Kind of hilarious.
That would have worked a lot better. And I'm not even the biggest fan of that comic book.
What was the word you used for that comic book? Overrated garbage.
It is overrated.
Yeah.
I won't go as, I'm just joking around. It's not garbage. I just say it's overrated.
No, you didn't say it was over. Oh, you said it was overrated garbage. Yes,
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Anyways.
But it wasn't garbage shit, which is what you...
That was Attack of the
your
Clones.
normal rating.
That was Attack of the Clones.
Well, that's justified.
That's justified, yeah. So, Nathan, what was your take there?
I agree with you that it was a nice in-canon way of resolving the fight. I think the point of the scene, again, because there's no nuance to this film at all, is for Batman to kind of snap out of his stupor and see Superman in a human light, right? I mean, and now that he sees Lois Lane there, Superman is no longer sort of this abstract threat anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I think Harry's got a point there. It would have been cool if they had ended it the same way as in The Dark Knight Returns. But, I don't know, maybe we should just move on. That's a tough one. Okay, so now they're BFFs, and it's time to wrap it up. So we've got the facility that's constructed around the Kryptonian scout ship is spitting lightning. Shit's going down. Lex has Martha Kent prisoner, so... It's Batman's mission to go off and rescue Superman's mom. It's Superman's mission to go and check out what's going on at the scout ship. Batman detects the tech. He finds and Alfred, they find where Martha's being held captive. And he shows up at the abandoned warehouse. Let's talk a little bit about the fight scene. This is sort of the most extensive action scene we see with Batman. Harry, what did you think of how this action scene is handled with Batman?
Best action sequence in the movie, hands down. Everybody who's a Batman fan will like this scene. It is well executed. Batman is very agile, very physical, like you haven't seen him before. It was very good. And Snyder filmed it very well. So he was that's one thing Snyder can do, is film physical action set pieces, especially when they're real. Like they're not all CGI. Like he can actually frame a shot very well here. And this is my favorite set piece in the well done.
Yeah, I think I have to agree with you there. It's brutal. It's very visceral. Again, yeah, there's not too much CGI used here. Very well framed. It's a very Batman type of fight scene where he's just messing up some dudes. Unlike the Dark Knight movies from Christopher Nolan, you can kind of see the action a little bit better.
I love this. I think this was one of the best, I'm going to say, I think it's the best Batman action sequence we've seen on film. Like, it reminded me a lot of the Arkham games. I love the Arkham series, but it just showed the swiftness and brutality of Batman, but also the efficiency. I just thought it was a perfect representation of like how Batman can be such a badass in a large group. And it showed his ingenuity. It showed the relationship with Alfred. I really like this sequence. It's one of those where it's like after, as I said, like a slight letdown. Like I would have loved to have seen this being like an opening type sequence of Batman, just to show the level of combat skills that he has. But I came out of that sequence like, okay, Batman's kind of redeemed himself here.
Yeah, as a longtime Batman fan, I agree with Andrew. This is probably one of the best, if not the best, action sequence featuring Batman. I mean, he's got all his like great fighting gadgets. I mean, he's got gadgets up the yin yang here, like on the guns and stuff. And then like there's a bit of a stealth element where they didn't realize that he came up through the floor as well. And the brutality of it as well. I mean, this is Dark Knight Returns-esque, where he's just a much more brutal fighter and just is there to hurt people.
So Superman confronts Lex Luthor in the Kryptonian scout ship, and they have a little
Kryptonian
chat.
Hot tub, I think.
Yeah, the Kryptonian hot tub. I'll tell you what, there's hot tubs I'll jump into, but this is not one of them. You know, Luthor's obviously upset, and the line is, if man won't kill God, then the devil will do it. And he reveals his master plan of the genetically engineered creature, which he calls Superman's Doomsday. So obviously we get the callback to the Death of Superman storyline way back in the 90s. And they start throwing down with this creature. Nathan, why don't you lead us off here with the reveal of Doomsday and the start of the final battle here?
The reveal has no impact because you know it's going to happen. In the earlier sequences, when you see Lex gaining access to the ship and he's just doing weird stuff, he's cutting himself, and it's very emo, cutting himself. He's got Zod's naked body there. Again, there's something missing here that we're not seeing. Why he's doing any of this. I mean, it seems to me that there are missing scenes where he's being told about Doomsday, because it almost seems as though he knows that this would be the final product. The reveal doesn't have a ton of weight behind it, I guess, so it's a little bit of a letdown. I mean, visually it's interesting, it's kind of gross and stuff, but leading into the final battle, it doesn't have the emotional impact that it should. Like a villain like Doomsday, I mean, that's a huge villain in the Superman universe. Just getting another kind of CGI monster here. Yeah, it's another CGI monster. That's true. Yeah. Harry, what do you tell me about the reveal of Doomsday, Lex's master plan? What do you think?
Sure. Okay, so I still don't really have all the motivations for Lex's plan. I think this character is it's not well thought out. They just wanted to throw in a villain so the Trinity of trios can just go fight something. I also don't understand how he creates Doomsday, because he uses Zod's DNA and then his human blood. Wouldn't you be technically creating a being that is weaker than Zod? Because you're combining Kryptonian and human DNA. Yeah, you would still be partially strong, but it doesn't make sense that Doomsday is the result of this. It's really, really poor. It's poor story writing. The look of him, too, he reminds me of doesn't really look a lot like Doomsday too much. Looks like Turd Monster from that Kevin Smith biblical movie. That's what he reminds me of. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, so Andrew, real quick on the reveal here.
I thought it was a great tie-in to Lord of the Rings, as I didn't think that a cave troll could be as powerful as Doomsday. It's one of those, I look back, I want to watch the movie again just because the sequence just doesn't make any sense. And Doomsday, that reveal, it had already been spoiled. And that impact of it was like, we knew he was coming. He showed up, we're like, he looks like a cave troll. And so there was no real oomph to that particular scene versus having an impact of a character like Doomsday all of a sudden show up, like, oh, damn, this changes the game. You're like, when's he going to show up? I'm like, that's how he shows up? Like, okay, whatever. Let's just see how this plays out. So there was no surprise and no emotional impact behind that reveal. It still doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it probably was handled very well. So we'll take it from here to the sort of the end. The big battle ensues. Batman understands this is a Kryptonian creature, so he knows he needs the kryptonite weapons to help defeat it. Wonder Woman, she's thrown her bags in the overhead compartment. That there's shit going down, so she rushes to the scene with her armor and gets in on the fight. We can take it right to the end of the fight. I mean, they battle, defeat the creature, and Superman gets killed in the process.
I loved Wonder Woman. I think she was just upset with the seat selection on Turkish Airlines. I love that little plug. So she decides, like, I might as well get the later flight. I thought it was handled really well. I love the music. I like the introduction. She definitely kicks some ass. The fight with Doomsday was pretty neat. And then when he had his hand chopped off and I saw that little bone protrusion, I'm like, that instant recognition, like, oh, crap. They're killing Superman. I was still expecting Aquaman to show up. I'm not sure why I was really wanting Aquaman to show up. I don't like the character, but
they weren't underwater. Was he going to blow bubbles at him?
I was just going to say, is he allowed to go on land? I don't know.
Based upon what was happening, I was just expecting more of a Justice League tie-in.
I wanted him to fly in on a seahorse. That would have been funny.
But not a big seahorse. A small seahorse.
No, a little one.
Yeah. But the battle was okay, but it wasn't anything to write home about. And the ending, I'm sure we're going to be talking about the ending separately. I did come away from that battle thinking I want to see more of Wonder Woman.
Yeah, like you guys, I think Wonder Woman's the best part of this whole battle here. There's a little sequence where, this movie doesn't have a lot of fun and, characters aren't happy. They're not smiling. There's not too many jokes flying around. But the one sequence I did like is when she gets thrown back from Doomsday, tossed across the wherever the block or wherever they're fighting. And she just gets up and has a smile on her face and gets right back at it. And I loved that aspect there of a little bit more of a fun. That's something that really was lacking in this movie and for the rest of this fight. Something I didn't also like in this fight too is I know that I think at the end how they defeat Doomsday, it's kind of a small team up there, but they really didn't work together as much as I would have liked. And I think that was a missed opportunity. They were just kind of doing their own individual thing for the most part. And then Clark had to go off course and save Lois again. So it's just, geez Louise, she needs to get away. Like, she can't be here all the time. And I'm sure in Justice League she'll find a way to get, in between Superman and whoever else in Darkseid, and she'll be there again. On the other side of the
She'll find a way to get into trouble.
But I think the fight overall was a bit lackluster. Regarding Superman's death, very disappointing. There was no real build up to it. It's just like looks at Lois, you are my world. I'm going to take the spear and go ram it in him. And he gets stabbed. It's kind of my cousin. I watched it with my cousin. He looked at me. He was all excited because, he grew up reading the Death of Superman comics that I gave him and stuff like that. And he was all excited and thought it was great. And I was just kind of bored. It really didn't hit home for me, or I didn't feel anything. I thought it was a big letdown. For such a huge pivotal moment, I thought it was very poorly handled.
Two things off the bat that annoyed me is that they twice made reference to where the battle was happening. No one was around.
Yeah.
And this was kind of like, oh, okay, well, everyone complained about people getting killed in Man of Steel. So, downtown Gotham, it's after work, so it's deserted, which would never happen in a major city like that. And then second on the island, oh, don't worry, sir, it's uninhabited. Okay, thanks. That was just like, it's so ham-fisted. Now, the battle itself, I loved the introduction of Wonder Woman, and I wish I could find it. There's no clips of it yet, but I mean, just even the music was great.
Oh, yeah, I forgot to mention that. Her music was great.
Oh, yeah. I think that was fantastic. And yeah, she brings the only humor to the film and fun, right? Because she's like a true warrior, the way those other two clowns are not. And, busting out the lasso of truth. But I like that they kept that element, right? And just her sort of supernatural weapons and stuff. But I agree that the death of Superman has no weight to it in this. Partly too is that see interviews with Henry Cavill, and he's just like, oh yeah, you're shooting Justice League in a couple weeks here. It seems like it's a bit of a throwaway in this movie. I mean, it probably would have had more weight if Lois had died or something like that. Like, I think that would have been something that we wouldn't see. But I mean, it's not horrible, but it has no weight for such a large event in a character's history.
From the fight with Doomsday, I was expecting to really not enjoy the fight at all. I thought it was going to be a piece of shit, partially just because from the trailers, the CG looked really, really poor. But I was surprised. I didn't mind it at all. It wasn't great, but obviously Wonder Woman's arrival on the scene was really cool. I liked the introduction of her character and, their interaction at the start where Batman and Superman are looking at each other going like, fuck, I don't know. Shit. She's obviously into it, so let's do it. She's slicing and dicing and, and the battles going on there. It's easy, but, the three kind of combine their abilities to defeat Doomsday. The death punch that Doomsday delivers to Superman right through his chest, I like that. It was okay. It wasn't great. In all honesty, they probably could have found a better way to resolve this film, but being that this is the choice they took, it was okay. I didn't mind it. Actually, I like the aftermath, which we can talk about a little bit. Doomsday's been defeated, and I thought it was kind of neat how, Batman wrapped Superman up in his cape and sort of lowered him down there.
Another Christ metaphor.
Yeah, definitely another Messiah metaphor there, which they're not shying away from.
I think Superman is 33 years old in this movie, which is also another Christ metaphor, I think.
He was 33 years old in the first movie.
Oh, is that what it was? Oh, I thought it was in this one. Maybe he's 33 in both movies. That's what I think.
Well, because at the end of Man of Steel, he says, I've been here for 33 years. And this movie was released on the 25th of March, which I heard has some significance to some Jesus people, but I don't know. What do I know? If anybody isn't sure yet, Superman is Jesus, okay? It's just
alien space Jesus.
He's space Jesus with laser beam eyeballs, okay? He makes it more awesome.
That's going to be the Bible remake that comes out in a few years from the Catholic Church.
Laser beam Jesus.
Hey, everything else gets a reboot. Why not the Bible?
So we get the dual funeral. So we'll wrap it up here with the dual funeral. Smallville. Clark Kent is the sole victim of the giant battle. He gets his own spread on page 2.
It's hilarious. It's just
it's good to know that the many areas they fought in were populated only by the intrepid, insubordinate reporter Clark Kent.
Insubordinate, yes. Fuck you, Barry White. I got front row seats to Doomsday.
I got front row seats and I'm dead. Poor Clark Kent. So we get the funeral scene in Metropolis and also in Smallville. Superman is dead. He's being buried, and we get a scene with Bruce Wayne and Diana Prince. It's time to seek out the people like her because shit's going down. Something's coming, and we have to assemble a super squad. Some dirt floats on the coffin, and the end. That's Batman v Superman. Harry, I'll let you weigh in first. These last scenes, the funerals, Batman's intimidation of Lex in his cell. What do you think?
I like Batman's intimidation of Lex in his cell. It's like, oh, sweet. But then it gets ruined again by Eisenberg and his silliness, ding, 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 and all that stuff. It's terrible. How he knows about all this dark side stuff. I mean, I guess he's figuring it out from the Kryptonian ship, but I do not understand any of this character's motivations here. Is he being controlled by Darkseid? Is he being controlled by another force? Is he just stupid? Is he just crazy? I don't know what he wants. It's just a bunch of ridiculous nonsense. Regarding the funerals, yeah, I mean, it's laugh out loud silly that about the page 2 spread about Clark Kent. Go into that further. How the whole world doesn't know he's Superman as Clark Kent is just baffling. I didn't really like any of these scenes. I mean, Batman says, "Oh, I failed him." Yeah, you failed a lot of things, man. It's ridiculous that you are the world's greatest detective. You are just an angry little child, is what you are. And now, just going back to the whole thing here again. Now, the DC universe is putting Batman in charge of the Justice League. Now, I listened to our podcast we did last in episode 5. Where we all agreed that Superman should be the linchpin of the Justice League, and they are not moving in this direction. That was a worry of ours. We all agreed on at the end of that episode, and here we have Batman, who seems to be going to be the leader of the Justice League, and this I do not like. I know Superman is dead at this point, and he's going to be coming back, but I just have no faith in what's going to be happening here. I didn't like any of this.
Yep, no, that's fair enough. Andrew, what do you think?
Totally hokey. Batman elements, like just take Batman. I echo exactly what Harry said, is that Jesse Eisenberg ruined those scenes as Lex Luthor. The whole parallel, the funeral with Clark Kent and Superman, I would have preferred to have like Clark Kent just disappeared. Pass. I'm just
Pass.
He's too drunk.
Yeah, I'm not even close to getting. It's one of those moments where like you want to be really drunk, but even after drinking, like I'm not sure how much. This is a good like third of this bottle of whiskey. I'm still fine, but I just
A third. Come on.
yeah,
You amateur.
I am a lightweight, thank you. But it was just so hokey, and the ending with the dirt lifting off of Superman's casket. Like we all knew, like Superman wasn't going to be dead. There's no mystery to it. And just as Harry mentioned, like when you guys were talking about the Justice League and having Superman be the linchpin, like right away, it's like even when Superman died, you know, like right away, he's not dead.
Well, of course he's not dead.
But that's what takes away the emotional impact of a character death like that. It loses that impact when people continuously get brought back. And I'm trying to think of a wrestling comparison, but it's just dulls, and comic books have become that, where like characters die and you're like, you know, a few episodes down the road or like a year down the road, they're just going to bring them back. You can't have a death like Superman happen without that emotional weight behind it. We didn't have that emotional investment in the character.
Is the reason why you don't feel anything at his death is because you know he's coming back?
Yes.
Or because they did do a good job with his death?
It's both. Like I think they just shoehorned it in. I think they did it in an attempt to make people feel upset about the death of Superman, when we all know he's going to come back. Like you compare it to a sequence like in Star Trek II with Spock dying. At the point when Spock died, back when the movie was released, like people thought he was dead. Like that was like, to end a movie like that on the death of a major character just sent shockwaves through the nerd community.
He was also a likable character, though. This Superman, you could argue, is not very likable.
Certainly, yes, I can see the perspective, and he's still Superman, but we just all knew what was going to happen. And so there's no surprise, there's no weight to it. And I felt they just shoehorned it in just to match how the comics were.
I kind of agree that there's little weight to the death overall, although I did kind of like the funeral scenes because there is a lot of imagery, I thought, from the Death of Superman comic. I mean, I have to honestly wonder if part of the reason why I don't feel it has any weight is because I know the actor is contractually obligated for 2 more Justice League movies, right? So, I mean, the death of Spock is in a way a little bit different because Leonard Nimoy at the time actually had said, I'm done with Spock, and he wasn't contractually obligated. Chris Evans, if he does die in Civil War, he's coming back next to Avengers movie because I know he's contractually obligated to. I mean, the only one who could potentially die, well, I don't want to talk about that, but so I don't know if that kind of colors my view of the death of Superman in this movie. It's serviceable. You know, it kind of ended on, you know, a little bit of a touch of hope that, oh, okay, he isn't truly dead. He's going to, you know, resurrect as I watch this on Good Friday. Yeah, the scene with Batman threatening Lex Luthor. I agree with you, Harry, that the scene sort of devolves a little bit. Like there's some more missing tissue here of how does Lex know this? They should have spent a little bit more time setting that up because there's no reason for him to create Doomsday. There's no reason for the ding, 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 something is coming at the end. That connective tissue is missing.
Okay, so that's the end of the film. So a couple questions I wanted to ask you guys. Let's just talk about, you know, a couple of high-level pieces. Just on a basic level, let's talk about Ben Affleck as Batman. Andrew, how did he turn out for you?
I think he was actually a lot better than I thought he was going to be. I think of all the characters, I was the most impressed. I think the difference between what I was going into in terms of my opinion of him and coming out of it, I had read a bunch of spoiler-free reviews, and it seemed to be pretty unanimous that everyone said that Ben Affleck was a lot better than people were giving him initial credit for. So I was happy with the brooding aspect of it. So I think Ben Affleck did the best job he could given what was presented to him. The writing of the character, certainly after talking to you guys, certainly exposes the stupidity of Batman throughout the duration of this movie. But I think Ben Affleck is how he portrayed Batman makes me want to see more of it. I want to see like how he became as disgruntled and old and just a curmudgeon that he became. Like, I want to see the storyline about like how whatever Robin got killed. So I think Ben Affleck did the best job he could, and it makes me want to see more.
Okay, Harry, how did Ben Affleck turn out for you?
It was okay. He wasn't terrible, but he also wasn't excellent, and this might be the fault of the movie and the writing and Zach and the direction. The thing that I noticed about Ben Affleck is, while there's some intriguing aspects to him, I didn't find a lot of nuances and differences between the character of Bruce Wayne the Playboy, Bruce Wayne who's, at home, or Batman who's at home dealing with Alfred, and when he's in the suit. Kind of all the same guy, but I'm wondering if that's also who he's supposed to be at this time period in his life. He maybe just doesn't give a fuck anymore. So it's a bit confusing and very different than the other portrayals of Batman that we're used to. So you got to do something different. So, okay, I'm just not sure that I like it. But I do agree that I want to see more. I'd be more interested in seeing him in a solo Batman movie instead of Justice League. I don't have that much of an interest in Justice League moving forward anyways. But okay job.
I had kind of the same feeling there. He didn't differentiate Bruce Wayne and Batman a whole lot. And I kind of felt that was, part of the character at this point. It's been so long. He's not Bruce Wayne anymore. He's just Batman, and he can't separate the two. I was pleased with his portrayal. I thought he was a good choice. I think it is weird to see Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne and Batman just because it's Ben Affleck. It's just strange, but I thought he acquitted himself well. Nathan, what did you think?
I really liked him. It's not my favorite Batman, but the expectations were so low, I guess, that he could only excel. But I think the idea that he's just sort of the same in all aspects of his life as the character, it kind of harkens back to the Michael Keaton portrayal, where there wasn't a lot of differentiation between Batman and Bruce Wayne in his, the personal and public life. And, Michael Keaton is one of my favorite Batman. We're dealing in a world where Val Kilmer was Batman. So, the bar is pretty low. And I would really be interested to see, a solo Batman film and just what he does further with the character in Justice League.
Just for the record, I'm a fan of Val Kilmer and his take as Batman, but
I like Val Kilmer, but he's kind of on the low end of that totem pole.
He's no George Clooney. Let's just say.
I was just gonna say, isn't George Clooney kind of the low end of the totem pole there?
But he also look what he had to work with. Come on.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a couple of things I wanted to talk about. They didn't really get to talk about it in the movie, but what about Superman acting as, his own force? There's no oversight. He's not accountable to anybody but himself. There's nobody who could stop him. I don't even know what the questions are or what the answers are. Nathan, what are your thoughts on this concept here?
Well, I think that's a great concept for a movie that I think, so in this sort of age, I think of, I know this is not like a terribly political. Well, it's sort of a political movie, but there's no nuance to it. So I think that's an interesting idea on the character of Superman. It's sort of unfortunate that they don't even really form the question properly, nor do they truly answer it in any sort of way. There's a germ of an idea, and they don't capitalize on that.
Yeah. So Harry, what do you think? I know you see Superman as supposed to be as the beacon of hope. What's his role in this world here? Should he have oversight? Should the people who inhabit this world fear him because there is no way to stop him?
If I would see Cavill's Superman in reality with all that destruction, I would be initially worried as well, like anybody else. But if he is trying to make amends and is helping people, I would try and give someone like that a benefit of the doubt. Very hard to say because it doesn't exist in reality, but that's what I would like to think. In terms of Cavill, like this Superman, as I agree with Nathan, this gem of an idea would be great to explore. It's just thrown there, and then Zack Snyder blew it up as he blew up Congress. These questions aren't answered, and I don't know if they're ever going to be. That was my worry with continuing this storyline in this movie instead of a direct sequel to Man of Steel. I think if we had a direct sequel to Man of Steel, we would be exploring these issues a little bit more, and it'd be better fleshed out. Because I agree with you, Jeff, I don't have an answer. And I don't even think the character of Superman himself, as depicted here, even knows what he wants. or who he is still 2 movies in, even after he helped kill Doomsday. Because in the end, all he did was, oh, Lois, you're my world. That's it. I'm saving you, but I'm not sure about the rest of this fucking planet. But you I like. You're my world. You're my world. Because even again, the child abuse was still here from Kevin Costner. We didn't get to that scene where he says, if you help, I help save my farm. My mom said I'm a hero, but we ended up destroying another farm. So isn't that message saying that if you help, you're just going to end up screwing somebody else over? So what's the message here? I don't like this character. And the character himself doesn't still know, and it's just a jumbled mess.
So, Andrew, what do you think about that?
It's an area that I wanted to explore, but it highlights part of what I want to discuss in like the final comments, is that this is one part of this movie that really, this movie was 3 movies in one. And this is a movie that I really want to see fleshed out over a 2 to 2.5 hour time period. Like seeing the emotional impact of Superman handling what happened with Metropolis, seeing the world come to grips with like, well, should there be control over what Superman does? Yes, that plays into like what they're doing with Civil War, but it just felt so rushed, and so the character just wasn't developed at all. I want to see it, but I don't think we're going to get it, which is really, really disappointing because there is an emotional investment in this character. But my fear is that basically we're just going to get Man of Steel. We're going to get nothing else when it comes to a solo Superman movie. Like that's it when it comes to the development of Superman. So it's discouraging. Part of my final comments are going to be talking about how like I'm actually really excited to see the extended cut of this movie because I think it may flesh out some of the characters, but we just didn't see it, and it's disappointing.
No, fair enough. But let's talk about the critical reception. We touched on it, how the film's been received critically. Are you concerned about how it's been received critically? Do you agree? Do you disagree? And what do you think that means for the future of the DC cinematic universe?
I will say that I do like this movie. Many of the criticisms I read about it, I think are all valid, and I agree with them. I can't help but feel that some people come into this movie and like they're just going to pre-hate it before they even see it. I think there's a lot of hate for Zack Snyder, and I think that is probably well placed because I think he's just like this type of faux geek who doesn't really understand superheroes necessarily. I think he's a good visual director, but he doesn't understand why these stories have meaning. One thing we never really touched on was one of the writers of this film is David Goyer, whom I think deserves as much, if not maybe a little bit more of the blame for how this movie turned out. Well, they're plowing forward with Justice League. So, I mean, I think the movie is doing well financially. Well, maybe not well in terms of Hollywood. It's probably doing modestly well. I read recently that they're doing reshoots for Justice League to add some humor, because apparently all the humor was in the last trailer.
You mean Suicide Squad?
Oh yeah, what did I say?
Justice League.
Oh, Suicide Squad. Sorry, that's what I meant. I think Warner Brothers is going to take a good hard look at the criticism and say, oh shit. I hope they don't make too hard of a course correction and go super jokey, because I don't mind the grim, dark stuff. You still need to have some humor, sure, but there's no reason to go full Marvel.
So, Andrew, what's your reaction to the critical reception here, and what's that mean for the future?
Well, I think because it's been a financial success, I think DC is going to still press forward with their desires to make this into, of course, a viable franchise and really compete with Marvel. I'm hoping that DC wakes up and looks at the critical reviews that are coming out about this movie and kind of shifts their focus in the development of this universe. I think they rushed into getting the Justice League together, which for them, they're lucky that it didn't backfire. I think this movie made a ton of money already. And in comparison to how good of a movie it is, they totally got away with it. But I think they know that they won't have too many other opportunities to get away with it, similar to how they did with Batman versus Superman. Like if Suicide Squad isn't good, it's really going to send a message. Like I actually have high hopes for Suicide Squad. I think the critical reviews that it's getting are very much justified. I think there's only been one solid positive review that I've read about Batman versus Superman that I read prior to going into the movie, which was from BBC of all places. But overall, I think the reviews that it's getting are well deserved.
Yep, fair enough. Harry, critical reception. the future of the DC cinematic universe?
Used to have this saying, like, this movie's called Dawn of Justice. Well, with respect to the critical reception, justice has been served. That's where I'll end with respect to the critical response. Future of the DC universe. I mean, as I said, I'd be interested in a solo Batfleck movie to watch. I would be interested in seeing Wonder Woman because I enjoyed the character here. As for Justice League or future Superman movies, no interest. Characters here just don't do justice for me, and as a team, the humor, I agree, it's a bit too dark for me to enjoy. I was going to bring it up in my final thoughts, but I believe that Marvel, even though I know they're sometimes more jokey in certain flicks, I believe they still have found the right tone. And here, tonally, I just don't like where these movies are on the DC side of things currently.
I think I agree partially with that as well. I mean, the critical reception, for anybody listening who doesn't know, the critical reception has not been very positive for this film. It's tough for me. I mean, I read a lot of reviews, and I can't disagree with a lot of what's said. My only issue is a lot of the negative reviews I read are people who don't seem to understand the characters or the comic books or the storylines that are at play, and a lot of critics had a problem with what they deemed to be the coincidental instance of Bruce Wayne's mother having the same name as Clark Kent's mother. And I understand it's a little goofy, but that goes back decades before any of us were born. So that's a thing that's built into those characters. So I don't know. I found a lot of the criticisms out there, it just seemed to be born out of people who didn't understand the characters. But yeah, you can't argue with a lot of the criticisms. I was hoping for a better critical reception here. The fan reception seems to be a little bit more positive. And as far as the future goes, I mean, me personally, I'm really looking forward to the Wonder Woman movie. And I'm looking forward to the Justice League film. It's probably going to be as messy and clunky as this one was, but I don't know. I think I'm looking forward to it. I hope there's some Batfleck solo movies. I think there's a lot to be explored there. That's the only thing that worries me, is that we've got solo movies for The Flash, Cyborg, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern Corps, but there aren't solo Batman movies.
Shazam.
And Shazam. Like, why are we getting into the B heroes here when our A-listers don't have solo movies on the slate? So I'm a little worried about that. Yeah, I think maybe it's time we're at 4 hours and 15 minutes, gentlemen. So maybe it's time to move into our final thoughts on the movie.
Damn it. So I was going to start off my final thoughts, and I'm going to continue to start off my final thoughts with, I went into this movie wearing Batman socks, Batman underwear, and a Batman shirt. Super excited about this, giving it as much hope as I possibly could of making this a great movie. And the credits started rolling, and I just sat there in my chair. And all of the people that were there with me just looked at me like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "I just don't know what to think of it." And I still don't know what to really think of it. There's so much more that it could have been. There's so much more that is left unexplained. It's a mishmash of movies put together to make it be a Justice League setup, when really you could separate this movie into 3 separate movies and make them each 2 hours long and all of them be fantastic. And that's why I don't think it really makes sense. Once again, I think it was a wasted opportunity. I think there were some great elements that were ruined by some terrible elements that just make it a confusing movie for most moviegoers. And it was a huge letdown. Like, I'm glad it didn't go up against Civil War, because Civil War is going to spank it when it comes to the caliber of the movie. I just didn't like this movie at all. I loved Man of Steel. I'm one of those people that just really, really enjoyed Man of Steel. And when I read a review saying that if you liked Man of Steel, you're going to like this movie, I was like, okay, this is good hope for me. And I came out of it going God, I've been gut punched and then kicked in the groin and then having my balls put in a vice. It just isn't a good movie.
Well, I'm hoping that your Superman underwear provided you the protection required for when you got kicked in the balls watching this. Nathan, you're up next. Final thoughts on Batman v Superman.
I do like it. And as I said before, I think all the criticisms leveled against it are all valid.
So, Harry, I'll give you the honor of the last word on it, so I'll go next. Yeah, I mean, I agree with Nathan. You can't really argue with the criticisms here. Every review I read, yeah, that's legit. But I like the movie. I mean, it's a mess. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but, I stopped trying to worry too much about the plot of these superhero movies, and I worry more about the characters themselves. I thought Ben Affleck did a really good job as Batman. I'm a fan of Henry Cavill as Superman. I know people say he's not very emotive. He's wooden. I just see him as portraying Superman as a stoic. He's trying to be strong for everybody, and I don't know, maybe that doesn't come across for everyone, but that really works for me as far as that character. I think it adds an extra layer to him as opposed to being sort of the smiling, shining light, which I don't find particularly interesting. So I like the movie. Man, it's got every problem in the book. There's no question, but it looks cool. It's not poorly written from a dialogue perspective. It's just poorly constructed from a storytelling perspective. I think part of that's the studio as well, trying to set up the Justice League and the other movies. I enjoyed it. I like it. I'm happy enough with it. So those are my thoughts. Harry, you get the honor of the last word.
The criticism was justified, as we talked about, but sometimes we always play armchair critics. So what we're doing on the show is we're trying to really look at all the different aspects of a movie, but when you look at a superhero movie, it's just really supposed to be dumb fun. It's a superhero movie. There's not many of them that's supposed to be inspiring or have a lot of messages here, because there's nothing here. It's just dumb fun of two guys punching each other and then a trinity of heroes punching a turd monster. So really, really, that's what you're getting. You knew you were getting it. So if you enjoy that, it's a good movie for you. But if we have to critically analyze this movie, which is what the other critics are doing, it's terrible. It's a mess. The character motivations are poor. We talked about Batman. We talked about Superman. Wonder Woman seems to be the only one who's kind of true to her character. She's just coming in to help everybody. Lex Luthor's terrible. I'm still mixed on Affleck. I disagree with you 100%, Jeff. Cavill's just a wooden log. I know you're saying a stoic, but he's no hero. He's not Superman. If you're saying you don't need Superman to be smiling and shining in the light and stuff like that, Superman's the beacon of hope for all superheroes. And the one hero that's doing it right now is Captain America. I mentioned one other time, I didn't like the first Captain America movie, but I do appreciate the character, and I did enjoy Winter Soldier a lot. That's a character that really Superman should be based around. Those type of characteristics. And I don't see that anywhere here, whether that's Cavill or Snyder or Goyer's fault. Probably a combination of all three, but still not an excuse. We didn't talk about the directing and editing here because there was so much story to tell. It was a mismatch of different scenes, and the editing was piss poor, but that's because the scope was so big. But you still can't, it's not a pass, it's not an excuse. The score was, again, not really that great or noticeable, except for Wonder Woman's jungle Amazonian music, which is kind of cool. So with the exception of that, it was not something I really cared to listen to. Overall, I thought it was a very poor movie, and I have no hope for the future of any of these characters, really, even though I would be interested in seeing a Batman movie and a Wonder Woman movie. But I think I'm done with this Superman guy. He ain't Superman to me. Hope he stays dead. I hope the dirt moving up was just a last gas passing through the body in his transition to death. That's it. The guy should stay in the ground. He's done. Even though he's coming back, but... He's coming back. He deserves... Well, he had it coming, maybe. One last thing before we put this in a coffin is... Harry, you brought up Captain America, the Marvel movies. Is it apples and oranges? Can we compare it to the Marvel movies at all? Harry, is this, giving us something different than the Marvel movies? Is it worthy as a competitor? Is it better? Is it worse? Should it just go away? What do you think? Well, it's early on. It's early days. So it's very hard to say, is it working? I don't think it's working because, as somebody mentioned, and I think I heard it before too, is that DC's trying to make it dark and gritty because Nolan's Batman was dark and gritty. That works for the character of Batman in a Batman solo movie, but the other characters cannot be all serious all the time. That is not who these characters are. Yeah, in comparison to Marvel, they're seriously dropping the ball big time. Marvel's done it better, and I'm a DC fanboy when it comes to the comics. Superman and Batman are my favorite superheroes, with Spider-Man a close third, but the Marvel movie universe is so much better at this stage. And they're not even perfect.
I think Marvel's kicking their ass. Marvel has demonstrated ability to show a wide range of different tones of movies. Like you get the serious tone of Winter Soldier, and then you get a really fun movie like Guardians of the Galaxy or Ant-Man. And it's still, they just have this ability to be able to have these amazing superhero movies with different levels of tone. But I think what DC is trying to accomplish is something that Winter Soldier had. Like Winter Soldier is, I think, the most serious of all of the Marvel movies. And to me, that I think is the best Marvel movie, but it still had some humor in it. It still had a little bit of lightheartedness to it. It still had that element of heart that is really missing. And I know there's been a lot of talk about the heart of this movie over the last few days. DC's going way too much like Christopher Nolan. As Harry mentioned, like that's good for Batman, but it's not good for the rest of the DC universe. And I'm the same way. Like I was a DC guy growing up. Like I loved Batman. I loved Superman. Marvel was something that only came recently in terms of my interest. But I think Marvel's just shown how to do good superhero movies. And rather than DC saying it's like, listen, we're going to do things our own way, they should just, there's no greater flattery than like the Imitation Game, and for them to kind of duplicate what Marvel did, I think it's just good for the superhero genre in general. And so while this movie I think is a huge critical failure, it's going to highlight to DC it's like you got to do it right, and people are going to go and they're going to watch these solo movies and going to appreciate the fact that there's a build up for these characters. But ultimately at the end, like they didn't hit the tone of what this movie should have really been. And I don't think Superman should stay dead. I wish they would give him another chance, but unfortunately, I don't think that's going to happen.
I think it's a little unfair, actually, to compare the DC movies to Marvel. I mean, Marvel has a huge head start, and Batman versus Superman is really their first foray into this arena. And let's not forget, like, the early Marvel movies they're good. They're not great. I mean, the first Iron Man, second half of the movie is not really all that good. Thor's kind of a mess. Iron Man 2, again, not all that great, I think. So Warner Brothers has the opportunity here to learn from Marvel's mistakes and, what they did right and what they did wrong. My fear, though, is that at Warner Brothers, they're not comic book guys, right? They're the type of, like, they're studio execs who think they know better, whereas that's what Marvel gets right. They know the material. They don't think they're better than it. Only time will tell. I think it's too early to really say what's going to happen with the future of the DC movies. I am concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go off the board here and say that as much as I enjoy the Marvel movies, there's a lot of hand-holding that goes on there. They play every single Marvel movie. They play it straight. They play it down the middle. Nobody took any risks in any one of those films. They all work. Age of Ultron is a giant mess of a movie, even more so than this one, I would argue. From a superhero perspective, superhero movie perspective, I like at least that this has done something in a completely different direction. As much of a clusterfuck as it is, at least it doesn't try to hold my hand. But that's Batman v Superman. Gentlemen, Andrew, Nathan, thank you for taking the time to guest star on the show again today. Harry, what is up for us on the next round of a podcast for Antiquities?
We've been doing some obscure movies and stuff that hasn't been fun. So I thought we'd do something a little bit more fun. And I thought we'd take away some inspiration of one of the references here in this movie as Batman's tragedy started when he went to see The Mask of Zorro. So
fuck off.
So we will now discuss and analyze in the next episode Antonio Banderas and Anthony Hopkins in The Mask of Zorro.
Oh man. Okay, yeah, that'll be a good one. We'll round up on that one. Andrew, thanks for joining us tonight, man. We appreciate it.
No, thanks again for having me. Always a blast.
Yeah, it'll be fun next time. Nathan, again, thanks for making the time tonight.
Thanks for having me.
Harry, it's a good time again, my friend. We'll see you on the other side.
Yeah, you too. Passionate conversation this was.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys.